Neighbor kept parking on my property, so I had him towed. Posted by Jellikai 2020. Backstory. I'm a single mother of 2 teenage boys, and I live in a nice, quiet neighborhood at the end of a cul-de-sac. Every house on this street has a garage, and I'm the only one that has a single car and parks in my garage. Almost every house on this street is a family home with at least 3 cars, but most have more. Some will park in their driveway, and some will park on the street. It's never been a problem since everyone is considerate on how they park, and no one has ever had an issue with getting in or out of the street. In addition, I tend to keep to myself. I'm not antisocial, and I wave and say hello to my neighbors when I come and go from my home, but usually when I get home, I stay home. So, I say all of this to give you an idea that I'm a homebody, and my neighbors pretty much know that when I get home, I stay home. About 6 months ago, the house to my right was sold to a larger family that consisted of dad, mom, and 3 teenagers. The day they started moving in, I made it a point to go over to the edge of the property to wave and greet them in order to welcome them to the neighborhood. They were friendly, and I was happy to have such nice people move in next door. Also note, this family used their garage for storage and thus parked their 4 cars in the driveway. I didn't know it at the time, but their youngest son was just months away from his 16th birthday. Now that you have a little information, on to the story. The players. Me is me, ND is entitled neighbor dad, NS is entitled neighbor son, and NM is entitled neighbor mom, and NP is the poor nice police officer. Today is Monday afternoon, and this story began last Tuesday. Around 6 p.m. on Tuesday, I received a knock on the door, and it was ND. Following is our conversation. Good evening, how are you? I talk back through the screen door and say, we're okay, I'm sorry I can't open the door, but my youngest came home from school with a sore throat today, and so I'm not sure what's going on with him. How are you, and how can I help? Well, I'm sorry to hear that. I hope it isn't anything serious. We're okay. My son just turned 16 a few weeks ago, and I'm sure you saw the new truck we bought him. Yes, I did. It's such a pretty truck and big. Does he like it? Yes, he does. It's what he wanted, so we got it for him. It is very big, and that's what I wanted to talk to you about. Let's take a brief pause here and understand that when I say this truck is very big, it is very big. It's an F-350. I personally think it's too much of a vehicle for a kid learning to drive, but it's not my money, so to each their own. I don't understand. We've been having complaints from some of the other neighbors that his truck is so big that they can't get around it when they are driving through, and we're afraid that it might get sideswiped if he continues to park it in the street. Yeah, I've had some intense moments trying to get around it myself, but I'm sure he'll get better at parking as he gets more experienced. I'm not sure what this has to do with me. I haven't complained. Oh, I know you haven't complained, which is why I was going to ask if he could use your driveway to park since you don't use it. I'm very stunned at this and say, I do use my driveway when I leave and come home. I can't get to my garage without using my driveway. Besides, I have issues with depth perception, and your son's truck is so big, it will take up most of my driveway, and I don't want to be responsible for any damage that might happen while it's on my property. Well, we'll make sure that he parks it so that it will allow you to come and go without any issues. That isn't possible. The only way he can park to allow me to get around him is if he parks it halfway on my lawn, and that wouldn't work because then he would damage my lawn. If you're concerned about his truck getting damaged, then why don't you let him park in your driveway and then one of your other smaller cars can park in the street? We've already discussed that, and we would have to park 2 cars in the street in order for him to use the driveway. It would be very easy for him to park in your driveway, and I can assure you that it will not be an inconvenience to you. You don't even use your driveway. I'm sorry, but the answer is no. I'm not going to be responsible for his vehicle on my property, and I need to be able to come and go without worrying about someone else's property. The entitled dad, very upset at this point, says, You're not being very neighborly. I thought you were a nice woman. You don't use your driveway, and this would benefit the whole neighborhood. I'm losing my temper at this point and say, Listen, I told you no, and I do use my driveway every time I pull into my garage and every time I leave. I'm sorry you don't have enough parking for all your vehicles. I'm sure it's frustrating, but it's not my problem that you decided to buy a vehicle that didn't fit your property. Now, while I also find it irritating to try and navigate the road with that truck in the way, it is public parking, and so I deal with it. I will not have anyone else's vehicle parking on my property. Now, if you don't mind, I have a sick kid and I need to get back to him. Have a good day. With that, I closed the door and then looked out the peephole and saw him give me the bird before he turned to leave. I just shook my head and had to take a moment to understand that I actually just had that conversation. I then loaded my son up in the car and left to take him to minor emergency to get him checked out. All tests came back negative, and I was told he probably had a run-of-the-mill virus and to keep him home and do self-care. I was told to bring him in if he got worse, but not to worry. I went to work the next day and told my coworkers the story of my neighbor's request, and they were shocked. I had one coworker suggest that I send an email to my HOA to explain what happened just to get it on record because it was such an odd request. I took her advice and typed up an email that day when I was at lunch, and I sent it. For those who want to know, it was just an FYI email, not a complaint email. It basically stated that my neighbor made a request to park on my property, and when I declined, he got mad at me and I wanted it on record just in case anything ever happens. So very glad I did. So, Friday comes and my youngest son has been homesick since Tuesday afternoon. When I got home Friday evening, I checked him and he'd begun to run a fever and was complaining of several other things. I'd been doing self-care with him since Tuesday and he didn't appear to be getting any better. Around 7 p.m., I decided to take him back to minor emergency and loaded him up in the car. I opened my garage door and I was absolutely shocked to see that very big F-350 sitting in my driveway, blocking me. I can't describe to you how angry I was to see that vehicle sitting there. Now, before anyone starts asking me how I didn't know it was in my driveway, it's because my street is very busy and cars are coming and going all the time. Unless someone knocks on my door, I don't bother watching every vehicle that drives up and down the street. The only window that can see my driveway are the ones in my kitchen, and I keep those curtains drawn and never look out of them. So, I get out of my car and stomp over to my neighbor's house and bang on their door. Entitled Mom answers the door, and this is the conversation. Irritated and kind of angry, she says, "Can I help you? You're interrupting our dinner. Your son is parked in my driveway after I told your husband he couldn't. I need to take my son to minor emergency, and that truck is blocking me in." It's at this time the entitled dad walks up behind the entitled mom and proceeds to talk. "He isn't blocking you in. You can get around him." "No, I can't. You need to move that truck or I'm going to call the police and a tow truck. I need to get my son in to see a doctor." Entitled dad turns to call for his son and then turns back to me. "He's not blocking you, but I will have him move it." "It doesn't matter whether you believe he's blocking me in or not. He is not allowed to park in my driveway. No one is allowed to park in my driveway, and if I find an unauthorized vehicle parked in my driveway again, I'm not going to bother to knock on your door. I'm going to have it towed." It was at this time I saw the son arrive at the door with his keys in his hands, and I turned to leave and head to my car to wait for him to move it, and I heard him call me that famous B word every woman's heard at least once in her life. I ignored him and headed to my car and watched as he got in, and after some effort, finally was able to back out of my driveway and parked his truck in the street a little way down the road. I was able to leave and take my son to minor emergency, where, as we waited for several hours to be seen, I shot off another email to my HOA about what just happened. I want to advise the HOA had already responded the day before that they received my email, made note of it, and advised my property was on my own and I could give or deny access to it as I wish. It was this email string that I responded to while waiting for my kid to be seen. Again, all tests administered to my son came back negative, and I was told it was a run-of-the-mill virus and he would be fine. The virus just had to run its course. I took him home and called it a day. Saturday evening, my oldest started complaining of a sore throat, and I was starting to feel poorly myself. My youngest appeared to be getting better, so I figured that whatever he had, we were getting, so we stayed in all day Saturday and Sunday. Sunday evening at about 5:30, my oldest son spiked a fever, and while it came down a little, it didn't come down enough, so I loaded him in the car and off to minor emergency we went. The only one I could find that was open on Sunday at this time was on the other side of town, so I had to drive 20 minutes just to get there, and we ended up waiting for 3 hours to just get in the door, and then another 45 minutes till we saw the doctor. After a few more hours and all of his tests come back negative, the doctor did state that she could hear some wheezing in his lungs, and so she prescribed an inhaler for him to help him, but basically told me the same thing, that he has a run-of-the-mill virus and to let it run its course. I had to drive even further to the only 24-hour pharmacy available to pick up the inhaler, and we did not get back to the house until almost midnight. Let me set the scene for you. My son is half asleep in the passenger seat and complaining that he just wants to go home, and I'm exhausted and feeling drained and having coughing fits myself, and I'm just looking forward to going to bed when I round the corner and saw that truck sitting in my driveway. I couldn't even pull in because he was blocking me, and I also noticed that he was parked partially on my lawn. I was so mad that I could hardly see straight. I Googled and found a 24-hour tow truck service and explained that I had an unauthorized vehicle on my property that I needed towing. The woman said it would be about 30 minutes before they could get a truck there, and I said that was fine. In the meantime, I walked my kid to the house and put him to bed, and then quickly went outside and took a picture from the street to show how much of the driveway he was taking and that he was also parked on my lawn. I couldn't understand why they would park in my driveway again after I had told them no, and the only thing I could come up with is that since there had been no activity at my house for hours, that my neighbors probably assumed I was in for the night and wouldn't notice the truck in my driveway. This is pure speculation, but it's normal for me to be in for the night, especially after 6 p.m. I don't know if they missed me leaving or just saw me leave, but figured I was home, but it doesn't really matter because I told them they couldn't park on my property. It was about 12:30 a.m. when the tow truck arrived, and I half expected my neighbors to come running, but there wasn't any activity from them, and the driver left with the truck without incident. I went in, shot off another email to my HOA, along with pictures and an explanation that I had towed the vehicle, and then went to bed. At 6 a.m. this morning, I woke up to someone banging loudly and rapidly on my door. I didn't have to look. I knew who it was. I grabbed my phone, hit the video record button. Before I opened the door, I looked through the peephole and saw entitled Dad and his son at my door. I opened the door, and following is the conversation. Very angry and yelling, entitled Dad says, "Where is the truck?" Me, as calmly as I could state while coughing, "It was towed. You can call such and such company to make arrangements to get it back." "You didn't have the right to tow it. You're going to pay to get it back." I had every right to tow an unauthorized vehicle on my property. I told you not to park on my property, and you did it anyways. It blocked me from getting in my driveway last night. I told you I was going to have it towed after the last time you parked without my permission, and I won't be paying anything to get it back. You stole my truck, you F&B, and I'm calling the police. I'm going to sue you. Me, having enough of this, go ahead. In the meantime, I'm sick, and I'm going back to bed. I closed the door and stood there for a moment. I looked out the peephole, and they were still there. Entitled Dad started banging and was also ringing my doorbell non-stop. He knocked and rang my doorbell for another 4 minutes before he gave up. I'm still recording all of this, and I didn't turn off the video until he was gone. I turned and saw my kids standing there. The noise had gotten them up, and I just advised that if they were still feeling ill, to just go back to bed because that's where I was going. Now, I will honestly say that I didn't think he would call the police, but he did. It was about a half an hour, and I really wasn't looking at the clock, that I heard a doorbell ring. I got up and I looked through the peephole, and a police officer was there. I opened the door and had the following conversation. Good morning, ma'am. Sorry to bother you, but we had a report from your neighbor. He's stating that you stole his son's truck by having it towed from the street, and we need to talk to you about this issue. Good morning, officer. My neighbor's only telling you half the story. I had his truck towed this morning from my driveway when I returned home from minor emergency. I couldn't get into my driveway, and I've already told him twice that him and his family can't park on my property. This issue started last week, and I have emails to my HOA, pictures of his truck parked in my driveway this morning, and a video of my neighbor's visit this morning where he called me names and told me he was going to sue me and call the police. I can show you if you'd like. Yes, so you're saying that the truck in question was on your property without your permission and that you had it towed? Yes, last Tuesday he asked if I would allow his son to park in my driveway. I told him no, and he got mad and flipped me off before leaving. Then Friday evening, when I was leaving, I discovered his son had parked in my driveway and I couldn't leave my garage. I went over and demanded that they move the vehicle, and I told them at that time that I would have their truck towed if they parked on my property again. I came home late this morning and the truck was in my driveway, so I had it towed. I just want to confirm that you're saying that it wasn't parked on the street, but in your driveway, and you have proof of this? Yes, sir. If you'll give me a minute, I'll print off the emails that I sent to the HOA that documents the issues, and I'll also show you the picture and the video as well. With this, the police officer said that he would wait for me to print everything off. Once I got the emails printed, I then returned to the door, opened my Photos app to the officer to show the truck in my driveway, time-stamped, handed my phone and printed emails to him. After looking at the photo where you could clearly see my house in the background, the truck blocking the entrance, and that it was partially on my lawn, the officer then read the printouts. He handed my phone back to me and asked me to open the video that I had referenced while he went over to the lawn to look. I watched him look at the area and then take a few photos. I could see my neighbor and his whole family standing in their driveway, watching me and the police officer. Police officer returned and I handed him back my phone with the video ready, and he watched it. After he finished watching the video, we had the following exchange. I'm going to need a copy of that photo and video for my file. If I provided you with an email, would you be able to send it to me? Yes, sir, no problem. I have enough information for my files to determine that the vehicle was not on public property and was, in fact, on your property. I've made a note that you did not give permission for the vehicle to be parked on the property. Based on the emails you gave me with the dates and time, it appears you did, in fact, advise your neighbor not to park on your property. Would you like to file a trespassing report for this incident? Oh, absolutely. I can see you're not feeling well. You can either file with me now or you can go online. He gets his business card out, writes on it, and then hands it to me. Here's my business card with my email address that you need to use to send me your photo and video, and the case number is on the card as well. Do you want to file with me now? Honestly, I'm exhausted and I'd prefer to file online later. Okay, reference this case number when you email your evidence and file the online report. Also reference my name in on the report. One more thing. I saw in the video where the entitled dad stated he was going to sue you for having the truck towed. He can sue you if he wants, and I would advise that you keep all of the evidence you provided me with today along with the case number I just gave you. Give it a few days and you can request a copy of the report, and you'll want to keep that as well. If you decide to file an online report, you'll need to keep a copy of that as well. I'm going to go talk to the father now, and sorry to have bothered you. Thank you, officer. Look, I'm sorry that you had to come out. Have a good day, ma'am. Get some rest. With that, I closed the door and went back to bed. However, I am so mad that I didn't get any sleep. A few hours ago, I sent off my photo, video, and another copy of the HOA emails to the email address the police officer gave me, and then saved all of that information just in case. I also filed a trespassing report online. I then sat down and started typing this story. Not sure where this is going to go, but I am going to see it through. I know that I'm going to get a lot of pushback from people saying that I should have just knocked on their door and had them move the truck, but I feel that I was right to have the truck towed. I'd already told them twice not to park on my property, and it didn't stop. So this was the consequence. I'll post an update later if there's anything that comes in my report, or if the dad does actually follow up on his threat and sue me. Entitled coworker finally got his due, posted by egrant03. 5 or more years ago, I worked in an office with a coworker, EC entitled coworker, that always one-upped you. If you had good news, he had better news. If you had a crappy weekend, it was nothing compared to his. A coworker came in looking distraught, and we finally coaxed it out of her that her mom was recently diagnosed with malignant breast cancer. Entitled coworker overheard, and suddenly his dad was diagnosed with another kind of cancer and a heart attack on the same day. If looks could have killed, he would have melted through the floor. A bunch of people went to HR after that, but in true HR style, he was too important, we can't prove it's false, blah 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 blah. Nothing ever happened. We knew he was full of it, and there was no way half the stuff he said was true, but it wore you down. About 5 months later, we were talking about our weekends on Monday. I casually mentioned that my nephew took state in both grade and weight in a recent wrestling tournament. Who shall be overhearing? But entitled coworker. He swoops in and says, "My nephew has plenty of wrestling medals. I bet he's not as good as mine. What's his name? I want to pull up his ranking." I gave him his name because the entitled coworker had jumped with both feet before I could tell my other coworkers that he's been nationally ranked since he was 6 for both grade and weight class. Yeah, I also didn't say that he'd recently accepted a prestigious invitation to wrestle for an international wrestling club with a number of Olympians having come from the program. Winning state was a pre-qualifier to the program, but everyone knew he would get it done. I didn't know they posted stats for 4th graders online, but sure enough, he pulled them up on the office computer. It only took a minute before he closed the window and tried to change the subject. A small crowd had gathered at this point, so I grabbed his keyboard and with Control, Shift, and T, I reopened the window promptly. I don't know enough about wrestling stats to tell you how good he was, but others apparently did and were freaking out about his stats. I knew he was good, but was apparently a savant or something. Lest we forget, people then started asking about entitled coworker's nephew and his stats. EC was floundering and trying his best to backpedal, but no one would let him. We searched with his last name and got no one that it could be. EC then started saying that it was his nephew on the other side. EC had bragged about being related to the governor, so we knew what name to search, and still, no one the right age range was to be his nephew. Suddenly, EC yelled that he was in 2nd grade, so it wasn't online. My nephew's stats were online from first grade, so that was BS. Next came, he lives in another state. But that didn't matter, as he was quickly shown wrestlers from other states, clubs and leagues, and even genders. EC's face was turning every shade of red before he finally stormed away, yelling something about harassment and going to HR. HR did reach out, but we pointed out the blatant hypocrisy when others filed complaints about him. A strongly worded email about unity, being a team player, and respect in the workplace was sent around, that everyone ignored. I stayed there another 10 or so months before I moved. Entitled coworker still tried to insert himself into conversations and to one-up everyone, but all it took was someone saying, "How did your nephew do in wrestling this weekend?" And he shut up. Posted by No Chrysler for me. In the past, I've made posts about my jerk of a brother, but this time something else happened. I decided to go camping again for the first time this year because of spring break, though I only got the weekend to go. But it was just enough for me to unwind. My brother didn't follow me like he used to. I think I've finally gotten him to understand that screwing with me is just not worth it anymore after he drank that growler full of laxative spiked beer that he stole from me last year. So the drama from him has not been as bad for the past few months. Though he's still an entitled jerk, and I've got plenty of things to tell about him and his antics from the months that I wasn't posting, well, I figured my worries about camping trouble were over. But no, I had to deal with a lunatic, Karen. I had already spent one night at my campsite, and I was loving the fresh air, and fortunately, rain was minimal. That's the only reason I went. Otherwise, I'd just have stayed home. But I had an itch to scratch to get out and enjoy some mountain air. I was far from alone, as the spaces around me were full of tents, trailers, and RVs. Plenty of people caught the camping bug during spring break, just like I did. I was sitting relaxed in a folding lawn chair and watching Tailspin on my portable DVD player. Yeah, I know it's a cartoon, and it's an old one at that, but I enjoy it since as a kid I used to watch some old tapes of it that a cousin had, and I've owned the DVDs of the complete series for around 10 years now. And I won't deny, I've always had a bit of a crush on the character Rebecca Cunningham. I had headphones on because the other campers were playing music and barbecuing, and they were doing other things. I was just chilling and letting myself mentally zone out with some refreshing cold beer when I got a sudden and hard tap on my shoulder that frankly scared the heck out of me for a second. And then I turned around to see a roughly middle-aged woman in over-tight purple yoga pants with her hands on her hips. She didn't have the Karen haircut, but she did have the bleach blonde hair and the overly large bug-eye sunglasses. I know in this situation, a lot of people will reflexively say, "Can I help you?" But that's just giving an opening to these people to say whatever they want. So my first reaction is to just angrily say, "What? Can't you see I'm trying to relax by myself?" That set her aback for a second. She didn't go away, so I paused the episode I was on and grumpily asked her what she was bothering me about. She spoke up in a matter-of-fact way that sounded like she was trying to be in charge. I guess trying to activate mom mode on a stranger. But I think the unfriendly scowl on my face was enough to show that I'm not exactly friendly. So she just pointed at the portable DVD player and said that she wanted to borrow it and the headphones for her daughter. To make it brief, I said no. And no is a complete sentence. Because I don't know her, I don't know if she'd bring it back, and I certainly don't know if her kid wouldn't damage it. I do actually keep a smaller backup portable DVD player in the camper too, but I wasn't about to let this woman know that. Well, she certainly didn't take to being told off like that well, and then launched into a tirade about how I was a grown man watching cartoons, how they only have one TV in their RV, and her daughter needs something to watch because her kids can't agree on what to watch, so she needs my DVD player. I coldly said that that was not happening, and she actually gave me a loud "why not?" So I pointed out to her that this was really not my problem, and that she just crossed her arms and said that, as an adult, I should be putting kids first. I said that would be the case if I had kids, but her kids are not my kids. I don't know them, and I'm in no way related to them, and therefore I have no obligation to them. So she rolled her eyes and then tried to offer me money for the headphones and the DVD player. Admittedly, I didn't pay much for either of them, but I don't care. I wasn't interested in selling. She only offered $20 for both anyway. So I just told her no and just to kindly leave me alone to watch movies in peace. Then I tried to just sit back down and resume the episode. She didn't take that well and proceeded to try and grab my DVD player right in front of me, like I was just gonna let her walk off with it. I got up and stopped her while saying, "That ain't yours, lady." She proceeded to try and shove me over. Try being the word. She clearly underestimated how heavy I am. I don't look it at all, but I'm around 230 pounds. My body frame just hides it well, and I've been in a few brawls in my life. I ended up grabbing her arms and shoving her back with little effort. She fell on her bum into some wet grass and started yelling that I'd assaulted her while looking around for support. I've seen enough Karen stories to know where this goes if I say nothing. So I yelled, "Yeah, assault on me when you tried to push me over and steal my stuff, and there's plenty of witnesses around us, lady, or did you not notice?" There had already been a few people around us watching the whole altercation, and they'd gone dead quiet while staring. So then I said to everyone, "Check it out. We've got a bona fide Karen here who tried to take my stuff for her precious angel baby. Everybody clap for her." And they did. They actually started clapping. The Karen looked completely humiliated and stormed off screeching that I was a butthole. Her yoga pants butt was all wet from the grass too, which only made it funnier. I kept thinking, "Your butt is grass," as she walked away, but I didn't say it aloud. I tried to resume watching the DVD as I was, but I felt uneasy that the Karen might come back. She snuck up on me rather easily before, and I didn't want to risk that again. So I packed up and went back into my camper to continue watching and drinking inside. Got pretty plastered that night. Stayed at the campsite for one more night, and I didn't see the Karen again until I was leaving Sunday afternoon. I saw her standing by her crappy-looking RV with a large fountain beverage in one hand and a dog leash in the other. It was one of those yappy little fluffball dogs too. She glared at me as I drove past, and I just waved to her and said, "Bye, Karen," out my window. She threw her drink at my truck, but none of it got in through the window. I could hear her yelling at me, but couldn't really make out a word of it. I'm not sure what goes on in the heads of these people, and I do understand that this could have really gotten a lot worse. Like that nut bar sticking the local ranger on me or something. But I think the public humiliation was enough to make her back off. I can only wonder if the rest of her family is just like her. Glad I didn't meet them. An update. I would like to clarify that the tap that the Karen did on my shoulder was by no means light. She had long fake nails and tapped my shoulder hard like she was on a mission to dig her nails into my skin in rapid succession. And that really ticked me off from the start. We gotta check out the top comment by Domprio that says, "Awesome way to handle Karen. There's nothing wrong with an adult watching cartoons. I watch cartoons all the time and I'm 46. If you like Tailspin, check out DuckTales or Darkwing Duck. There's a couple other cool cartoons from that generation, like Thundercats and Animaniacs, or a couple that I can think of." Concerned neighbor will set the apartment on fire, posted by Famous Chip 9386. Hello, I'm 26 female and my neighbor is 65 female. Recently, I got a new neighbor. We live in a duplex and she's in the other unit that shares a roof and a wall with me. The first night she moved in, I heard her fire alarm go off and I went outside to see her back door open and smoke coming out of it. I went over and her oven had started smoking, but she unplugged it before it caught anything on fire. She seemed off, but I thought it was just because of the oven smoking. She told me that she was homeless after a hurricane that hit us a few years ago, and her temporary housing had caught on fire because of a dishwasher malfunction, and so she was extra spooked. I thought nothing of it and ended the conversation saying goodnight before I returned to bed. Well, she starts banging on my door around 1 a.m. because she can't find her phone. I think nothing of it because it probably got tossed somewhere as the oven started smoking, and as a neighbor, I was happy to help. I gave her my number just in case she needs anything. The next day, she texts me asking for a ride, and I don't have a car, so I declined. Then she asked me some questions about the apartment, which I'm happy to answer since I've lived here for over a year now. She asked me to share my Wi-Fi and claims that she would pay for half, but I decline because that can be super dangerous, but I make up an excuse. All the red flags are up now. I drop hints multiple times that I'm busy, but she will not stop texting me for about an hour. After she sends me like 10 texts in a row, I straight up tell her that I'm busy and she apologizes. The next day, our power goes out, so I reach out. Apparently, hers went out first and she contacted maintenance, but they won't fix it for a few more weeks. Eventually, mine comes back on 30 minutes later, but hers does not. A few hours later in the middle of the night, I hear her fire alarm beeping again, so I text to make sure she's okay. She calls me and tells me the fire alarm was going off for no reason, and then trauma dumps on me. She tells me that her ex-husband works for our local police and that he's harmful and out to get her. She told me that people purposefully set her housing on fire on July 4th with fireworks to kill her pets and suggested that her ex was behind it. I looked up the house fires in our area and even our whole state on or near July 4th, and no results came up. She told me that the entire police department was corrupt, which I can believe, but they were also out to get her. She told me that her children think that she's crazy and have been manipulated by her ex. She told me that she's considered offing but won't do it because of her faith. I told her on the phone that I'm setting boundaries, that she isn't allowed to contact me unless there's an emergency, and that she cannot continue to trauma dump on me. She goes on a rant about how she wasn't trauma dumping, wasn't on drugs, which I never asserted, and wasn't over there setting fires, which I also never asserted, before talking about how that she would never off herself once more, and then saying goodnight and hanging up. That night, I contact my landlord about everything, and they informed me about the maintenance issues over at her apartment, explaining why the fire alarm went off the first time, which I already knew, and the next morning, they told me that they were going to ask her to not contact her neighbors at night. The maintenance manager called me about my electric being out, and I mentioned that mine came back, but hers did not. The maintenance manager told me that my issue was unrelated to hers, and they were about to call her. About 30 minutes later, I hear her yelling and then screaming on the phone at whom I presume was the maintenance manager. I heard her exclaim that she never did anything wrong and she was getting her life back together, followed by some door slams. At this point, I was really worried for my safety, but she didn't knock on my door or anything and hasn't attempted to contact me since. I'm more so worried about her setting our building on fire, given her history. I don't know if there were 2 fires or if there was 1, but I'm just very, very concerned. Our walls are made out of concrete, so I'm less worried about the walls catching fire and more worried about the roof and the ceiling. I have a cat and I live here alone. I'm afraid to leave the house in case he's trapped here if she sets the apartment on fire. I'm putting together a bag of essentials and my most sentimental items. Going through all of them has been really emotional. I have places that I can probably stay at if it all falls apart, but I'm just still terrified nonetheless. I'm a grad student on grad student pay. I have renter's insurance, but I'm still worried about recovering financially, let alone emotionally, if she burns my apartment down. I'm afraid I'll have to delay graduating if this happens. It's already taken an emotional toll on me, and I cannot focus on schoolwork. I don't know what else to do beyond what I've done so far. Any advice would be appreciated. Do you agree with this comment? OP replies. So call Adult Protective Services so they can do a wellness check. Smart on you for setting boundaries and continue to keep the landlord informed. OP says, I would, but I'm concerned that she would know that I did it and retaliate against me. She hasn't made a threat against me yet, but I'm very fearful of her. I mean, hey, it could be another neighbor that actually reports her. She doesn't know it has to be you. Ooh, what do you think? First experience with the 100% authentic Karen. Posted by Dirk Pita. I'm a 28-year-old male and I'm a customer service representative for a very reputable insurance company in the US. I have experience in this job in different companies ever since I finished high school. Now, as a disclaimer, I do not and would never work in underwriting. I'm just in charge of regular CSR stuff. I don't have a say on insurance claims, and that's an entirely different department. Also, I'm an outsourced employee. Most customers don't mind. Some occasionally ask where I'm from, and then there's the very rare butthole that asks for someone that speaks English as soon as they hear my accent. I don't care. I'm used to it. Generally speaking, American customers are very nice and patient, more than the ones in my country. So I never really understood where do all the retail and customer service horror stories from the internet came from. Today, I did. So, Karen calls. As soon as I answer, I hear a lot of background noise, and the first thing that I do after introducing myself is to ask for the policy number. I hear a man in the background yell, and between a lot of noise, what I realize is, in fact, the policy number, and I ask him to repeat it since I could not hear very well. Karen decides to take the lead and let me know that she is driving through the interstate while calling me and that she does not want me to waste her time. I'm like, okay, how can I help you? I kid you not when I tell you this woman started screeching to the point that I had no idea what she was saying. Yes, I am not a native English speaker, but it's never been a barrier for me. I could not, for the life of me, understand why this woman was so angry. Between the insane yelling, I can make up something about her policy being canceled and her being charged anyways. And seeing the direction that this call was going, I decided that my best move was to immediately contact a supervisor through chat to get some assistance. I inform Karen of this, and I ask her to give me just a few minutes while I check on my side of the screen with what is happening with her policy. Karen, however, decided that I was a genie and I was supposed to grant her wishes and solve the issue that she was having without even knowing what it was and without checking for possible solutions. She decided that I was not allowed to place her on a hold. But I've had my share of angry customers, and I know better than to let them take control of the call. So I explicitly tell her that if she wants my help, she will need to cooperate with me and to let me figure out what is going on. She reluctantly agrees, but says she will be counting when I specify the hold will not be longer than 5 minutes. First supervisor interaction, and I'm just like, I have no idea what this woman wants. She's yelling at me, very angry. What's happening here? So we start piecing together emails and notes and everything left and realize that she requested for the policy to be canceled and provided proof to have a backdate cancellation, and it was all processed smoothly. She even got a response telling her that she would get the refund that she expected, and now I was even more confused. My assumption was that maybe she was just angry because she hasn't been refunded yet, which is just bank time shenanigans and, well, nothing we can do about it. So I'm like, okay ma'am, don't worry, you will be getting your refund, it's just bank timing. And that's when she informs me, at least in a coherent way, the real issue. She was magically charged again last night. So I double check and triple check with my supervisor. There are literally no traces of this supposed charge that she got last night. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't really believe that she was lying about it, we had no proof of it. So I asked her to send us a copy of the bank statement so we can issue a refund right away. And she just loses it. Once again, she starts screeching about how she's driving to go into surgery, how she's going to sue the company, me personally, all the colorful insults that you can imagine, including my accent and country of origin. How we stole her money and she wants hers back. I insist that I just need some record of it to issue the refund. I genuinely try to reason with her, explaining to her that I can't just issue a refund for someone who calls asking for it when we're not showing it in our system, and that I genuinely want to help her. Apparently, she was so freaking angry, she was driving like a maniac and got pulled over by the police and was given a ticket. She asked for my name so she could send me the ticket, as she was not going to pay for it because we were the ones causing her distress. I kindly explained to her that she shouldn't be calling while driving. That is not our responsibility. However, I gave her my name. Good luck with that. I'm on the other side of the world. Anyway, she said that's what hands-free is for. And I had to hold back laughing because it only then hit me how stupid this woman clearly was. The part that really got under my skin was not the insults and the yelling, the racism or whatever. It was just how insanely unreasonable this woman was. Her concern was completely valid, and I told her multiple times that she was right to be upset and right to call us to get things fixed. But she needed to cooperate with me, and she was just hell-bent on releasing all of her anger and frustration on me. She literally would scream insults at me and then stop and say, "What else can I call you so you can understand how angry I am?" The worst part is that in my employee handbook, I am 100% allowed and justified to hang up on a customer like this. Karen thought she had some sort of hold over me, but that was not the case. I could have ended the 2-hour-long call at any time that I wanted with all the verbal abuse that she was throwing at me, but I still wanted to help her because I did believe that if she was being charged, it was unfair and I had to fix it. I started to get suspicious when she consistently refused to send me proof of the charges, no matter how much that I reassured her that this would all be fixed as soon as she did. It came to a point where she started telling me that if she died in surgery and made her husband a widow, it would be my personal fault. Don't ask me why, but that made me snap. For the first time in the call, I told her to not speak to me like that and to not say stuff like that. She was so thrown aback from my reaction that she calmed down for 5 minutes, give or take. I actually had hope then that maybe we could end this on a good note, but to no avail. Karen still wanted me to trust her word that she was being charged $59 on a canceled policy and wanted the money back. I finally told her that if she was not willing to send proof to dispute the charges with the bank. She said that she shouldn't have to call her bank, and I told her, "You've told me many times that this is illegal and fraud. Given what you've told me yourself, I strongly encourage you to dispute the charges with your bank." I asked if there was anything else that I could do for them, and I ended the call while they were still insulting me. I changed my status to take a breather and realized that most of my coworkers were looking at me, extremely concerned. Apparently, the yelling could be heard through my headset. My supervisors, more than one, joined in to help, congratulated me for keeping my cool and keeping control of the call. I still feel guilty because I couldn't help her. I'm not saying this for pity points, I really do. I was just so willing to help her because I love my job. But she just wanted someone to be mad at. Screw you, Karen. This is "A Customer Is Not Always Right Though" by Spirited Bee 6840. This is a pretty long story about my first job in retail. I have a lot of horror stories from that job, but this is one that sticks with me even 4 to 5 years later. A few years ago, after I had just started college, I got my first job working in the shoe department of a sporting goods store. My job was simple: assist customers with finding the shoes we want, keep the aisles neat and organized, and then occasionally order shoes for customers if they didn't have them in stock. One day, my department had a call from a customer asking if we had a shoe in stock. I checked, told them that we did, and then they asked if I could put the shoe on hold for them. Once again, I did, and then I kept it in the back until they arrived. When they did arrive, they told me the name and I went to retrieve the shoe for them. When they got the shoe, they claimed it was the wrong shoe. I was confused at first because I thought I'd gotten the one that they'd wanted, but decided that I may have made a mistake. Not making a big deal about it, I apologized and I asked for the product name again to search our inventory, only to realize I had gotten the same shoe I just handed to them. Now, I was really confused. The shoe they were asking for was the shoe that I just gave them, but they said it was wrong. So I decided to take them to the aisle that the shoe came from to see if they would like to look at the selection. The shoe that they had asked for, which was still the shoe I had given them, was actually on display. They saw the name to confirm it themselves, but still insisted it was wrong. Come to find out, the reason they said it was wrong is cause, supposedly, the shoe underwent some kind of design change, and now instead of being a pure black shoe, it was a black shoe with a small white line going around the bottom of the shoe. It was the same exact shoe, but they were confused because apparently this line was not there the last time they bought it. They explained that they were buying it for their son who worked on an oil rig and needed this type of work shoe for the job because they knew it was the one that he liked, but they were confused because of the new design of the shoe. They were an elderly couple, so I assumed they just thought it was a different shoe, and knowing their son liked it, they were concerned with getting him a different pair that he might not like as much. I reassured them it was the same shoe, despite its change in appearance, and I am sure their son would still be happy with it, to which they continued to argue it wasn't right. It now felt like I was trying to convince them that one small design change wouldn't change the way that the shoe worked. When that still didn't get through to them, I tried offering a different pair, to which they insisted they needed this shoe, but without the white line. At this point, I'm getting frustrated because it has been 30 minutes since I started trying to help these idiots. Eventually, my manager walked by and asked what was going on. After the customers explained the situation, she joined to try and help me. Eventually, she managed to convince them that it was the same shoe. I was a little annoyed that it took her 5 minutes to do something that I've been trying to do for the last 30 minutes, but I was happy that this exchange was finally over. Or so I thought. After convincing them, they decided they wanted me to order the shoes for them rather than just buy the pair that I'd already given them. Our store had a system that allowed you to order a pair of shoes online and have them sent directly to your house. So I started going through the process of ordering the shoes for them. If any of you have ever purchased something online before, which I assume is most of you, it was the same process. The system requires information like your home address, your email address, your zip code, phone number, and so on. I should mention, by the way, they had mentioned having ordered a pair of shoes from us before, and I'd been working here roughly around 2 years by this point, so I knew how our ordering system worked, and I know the way that we do it had never changed. So I started asking for their information. First of all, they claimed they don't have an email address. This was back in 2019, so it was incredibly baffling to me that anyone in the modern era didn't have an email address. But that's not where the frustration continued. As I had asked for each bit of information, they had to question me on why they needed it. Then, at one point, the old lady, who had been doing most of the talking during this whole exchange, interrupts me to claim that she never had to give us this information before and didn't understand why I needed it. I then explained to her that this is the way we've always ordered shoes for our customers, and if she'd ordered with us before, like she said, then she definitely has had to give this information. She starts to rant about it and claims, and I quote, "I may be on crazy pills, but I know I've never had to do this before." After letting her finish her rant, I explain, a bit short of patience this time, that this is just how the process works, and if she wants these shoes, she's gonna have to cooperate with me. Eventually, I get her information, order the shoes, and they leave. This entire exchange lasted a total of 45 minutes, which is 40 minutes longer than it needed to be. By the time they left, my manager saw how frustrated I was and told me I could go sit in the break room to calm down for a minute, which I gladly did. Customer service employees do not get paid enough to deal with the people like that day after day. We are human, not machines. You cannot talk to us like we're your computers. Half the time, we don't know what's going on either, and most of us don't even care. Which is why anyone who tells me that the customer is always right, I laugh in their face and tell them to go screw themselves. I'll tell you what, as Crystal Web 13 says here, the customer is always right in matters of taste. Neighbor won't stop banging on my walls every morning, posted by my Big Apple Pie. I've lived in my apartment complex for 4 years now and am no amateur when it comes to noisy neighbors. We've had several neighbors just come and go all around us, and they've all brought their own noises to contend with. My husband and I have no kids, just 2 cats, so we consider ourselves pretty quiet. Through all the noises made by the neighbors, including vacuuming every night at midnight, we have never complained. Not once. We just consider it to be par for the course when it comes to apartment living. However, about 3 months ago, one of my neighbors has taken to banging on the walls from the hours of 3 a.m. to 7 a.m. I can't pinpoint who it is because I'm surrounded on all sides, but I've deduced it's either my neighbor to the right, above me, or to the right and above. For a while, I genuinely thought I was being haunted because there was never any talking or movement, just insane banging. It's also sporadic, so when I try to pull an all-nighter to hear it while awake, it, of course, doesn't happen. This morning, though, whoever is banging finally shouted, "Wake the heck up!" to accompany their lovely symphony. So I now know for sure it's a human. I'm assuming someone is making noise that I can't hear, hence the banging and screaming, and I'm confident it's not us, especially since this all started. I make sure that every possible thing is unplugged before bed. But I feel like I'm losing my mind. It's difficult for me to fall asleep, so when I get woken up like that, I can't go back to sleep. The banging always makes me wake up in a panic, ready to fight. So calming down takes a while. And then by the time I'm calm again, I can't sleep. I just don't know what to do. I would tell the office, but I have no idea who it is. I'm tempted to leave notes for all the neighbors near me, but I'm very non-confrontational, so the thought of them catching me is nauseating. That is my rant. I'm just so over this particular noise. I'm losing so much sleep and my mental health is hanging by a thread. Maybe I'll just start banging back for once. Entitled Aunt Karen demands to live in my new house and won't take no for an answer. I teach her a lesson with updates, posted by HuggyBear21. At the time, I had just purchased my first house, but told no one about it. I wasn't even dating at this time. It was a huge 3-bedroom townhouse well outside of the nearest city, and it came with 10 acres of land. Somehow, word had gotten around that I had just bought a house. I hadn't even moved in at this point. It wasn't long before my entitled Aunt Karen found this out and apparently made plans to move in and live there, despite the fact that I hadn't even moved in yet. It wasn't long before I got a call from her. First thing out of her mouth on this call was, not so much as a hello first, "Make sure I have a key when I arrive and move in." I'm like, "Excuse me, move in?" "Yes, I'm going to live there and I'll allow you to live there too, as long as you don't cause issues and get loud." And I told her, "No, you're not moving into my house and will be thrown out if you try." "I'm packing my stuff now," she said, as if my word was meaningless, "and I'll be there first thing tomorrow, and you had better have my key in hand then," and then she hung up. As a result, I called the cops, who put me in touch with the local sheriff's department, and I explained what was going on, so they told me they would have a patrol check the property from time to time and run off anyone that was not supposed to be there and would arrest those that refused to leave. As it turns out, my entitled aunt tried to go to the property that night and drop some of her stuff off, but she was caught by the patrol and they told her to leave. When she said it was her house, they told her no, it wasn't, and the owner does not want anyone on his property, having to threaten to arrest her if she refused to leave. She called my phone number within an hour at about 11 p.m. and started yelling about the sheriff running her off, and I just hung up on her and I unplugged my phone for the night. I got up at about 4 a.m. that morning and I plugged my phone in and found my voice message box full of repeated messages from her about how dare I not answer my phone and have her run off from her house. Yeah, she actually said her house. Later that morning, I called the sheriff again, and I requested an officer be there at the house in case she came back and arranged a time for my arrival. On my arrival, a sheriff met me at the house, and it was less than 30 minutes until my entitled Aunt Karen arrived with a carload of her personals and immediately walked up to me and demanded her key. "You're not getting a key and you're not living here, no matter what you think." She blew up at this point and started shouting how it was her house and she was going to live there whether I wanted her to or not. I just smiled, closed the door in front of her, and locked it in front of her. She, of course, tried to grab the keys from me, which I simply put in my pocket, and I told her, "Hey, tell that to the sheriff standing behind you." She screamed, "Bull crap, you're not keeping me out of my house." I looked past her, and then I said, "Well, see, what did I tell you?" At that, a loud "Huff" from behind her. "Ma'am, you have to leave the property or you will be arrested for trespassing." She turned with a sour look on her face, getting ready to unleash another tirade on whoever was behind her, and instead made a strangled sound and her face went white as a sheet. "Ma'am, this man does not want you on his property, and as of now, you're considered trespassing and will be arrested if you refuse to leave and cease harassing this gentleman. Before you go, Auntie," she hates when I call her that, "just because you want something does not mean you're going to get it, such as my new house, and if I ever see you on my property again without my permission, I will have you arrested and have your car towed at your expense." If looks could kill, I'd be dead several times over from the glare she was giving me. Better yet, you're not going to be allowed to come here again, and I don't care if you become homeless or how badly you need a place to live. Now, leave before you get arrested and have to pay to get your car back after it's towed. She left, giving me the bird on her way to the car, prompting a sharp rebuke from the sheriff. To this day, she's been going around telling anyone that will listen how I robbed her of her new house and how she's going to get her house back someday. That's going to be a problem for her. Since then, I have improved the property and I sold it for a tidy profit to a really nice but take no crap couple, and I bought a new property with more acreage, about 25 more acres, and no one is telling her I moved. She did try sneaking back onto the property about 3 months after I sold it, and the couple's husband nearly shot her because she came around midnight, I think intending on trying to sneak in through an open window or something. This time, she did spend about 30 days in jail, 100 hours of community service, and 3 years probation plus fees and court costs for trespassing on private property and attempting to enter a private residence without permission. I don't remember what the actual charge was. Her entitlement knew no bounds, and having a gun pointed at her was a harsh but ultimately necessary lesson after learning she was not getting her way with me. From what I'm told, she's calmed down some, but still acts entitled and is actively trying to find out where I live. The first update. Now here's a little insight on why my aunt is so entitled. As far as my memory serves, she's had an entitled attitude since I was a little boy, always demanding and refuses to take no for an answer. Her husband left and divorced her 3 years after their marriage due to her attitude and refused to accept that the house they lived in was not community property. He owned the house before they married and had to be physically removed from the house by the police due to her entitled attitude. When my father died and left me a sizable inheritance, I was an only child, she tried to get her greedy hands on it, claiming it was hers by right, and even tried to sue me, a 9-year-old child at the time, to get it. She went absolutely bat crap when that failed and wound up serving 2 weeks in jail for contempt of court. Then she tried to fake my signature on several documents to get my inheritance. That failed as it was held in a trust by an attorney at the time and lost any claim to it due to the attempt and was removed from getting any inheritance due to the terms of the will. I still don't understand how she managed to try that without facing attempted fraud charges. From that point, she only got worse. When I hit 18, she came to me with papers and demanded I sign them and had a sleazy attorney with her that tried telling me that they would sue and tie up the inheritance for years to come until I signed over the money. They did not count on me having dealt with the attorney for several years and who viewed me as if I were his own son, who told me to sign nothing if anyone tried concerning my inheritance, and she wound up having to pay for her attorney out of pocket and was in debt. Since then, she's been trying to bully family members into getting what she wants and then threatens to sue whenever told no, even when she has no grounds to stand on. It's currently how she got the house that she lives in now, by threatening a family member with a lawsuit if she didn't get the money she wanted. A family member I shared my inheritance with, she bought my entitled aunt a little house in order to shut her down and then blocked her on everything and went no contact with her and got a restraining order on the basis of being constantly harassed and threatened by my aunt. Apparently, she thought she could take my house from me and no one would stop her. So she thought. During this, she had gotten herself banned permanently from several local stores, including the Locals and several other Wally Worlds and several restaurants. Absolutely refuses to apologize to anyone when she's wrong and will never, ever admit that she was in the wrong and is a major gossip. Even after I sold the house, she tried to forcibly move into it. She still tried to get the house, nearly getting herself shot in the process, and now has a criminal record due to it. To this day, she runs around telling people how awful I am for stealing her house and refusing to admit it was and is her house. She's always had that attitude that the world revolves around her and that everyone in it must bow to her wishes, pre-Scrooge revelation and still cold and greedy. Her mother was just as bad, so I can see why she developed such a bad outlook on life. Has absolutely no mercy towards those less fortunate and even says that they need to hurry up and die. It would refuse the so-called surplus population of useless people. And dare I say, idolizes figures like Scrooge from A Christmas Story and has been heard making comments like, "Too bad Hitler lost the war." Overall, she's basically a very evil, entitled woman that hates anyone that does not share her viewpoint and does not bow to her wishes. And as to her seeming obsession with me, I think that comes from my own mistake in allowing her to borrow some money from me after I was 17 and understood what it meant, and later claiming that she never borrowed anything. She never paid me back a penny, and to this day claims I owe her money. Final update. I've recently found out that I no longer have to worry about my entitled aunt, being as she would never, ever admit she was wrong, and, as it turns out, an avid anti-masker as well. She caught and eventually died from complications due to catching the pandemic. Karma caught up to her and kicked her hard in her backside. No one attended her funeral, not one single person from the family, not even her own kids. I had told my entitled aunt that she would die bitter and alone if she kept up with her entitled attitude toward people, and it turns out what I told her was prophetic, to say the least. As I told her, she did indeed pass on bitter and alone. Still, even with all she has done, I still did not wish ill or harm. I simply could never trust her at any one given time. An example of just how bad and bitter she was towards others. When I was 12, she managed to convince my mother to allow her to babysit. Before then, my mother told me to never, ever sign any papers she may try to get me to sign without her being there to first read it. Sure enough, she did indeed try to get me to sign some papers, and I refused due to what my mother told me. She got mad, went full Karen on me, terrifying me, and locked me in her broom closet, threatening to keep me there until I signed those papers. I still refused. She kept me in the closet regardless until my mother came to pick me up. A few days later, that incident and the butt ripping she got from my mother, she tried to present papers to the bank that held my father's money in and claimed that I had signed the papers. The papers were rejected as being obviously a fake signature on them. To this day, I'm still boggled over how she managed to squirm her way out from under that one, but she managed to somehow. And that's only one of the many things that she tried in her lifetime. Another one she pulled was trying to claim my birthday presents so she could return them and get the money from them. At this time, my father was alive and intercepted her as she tried to carry out my presents. He forcefully threw her out of the house, and she actually had the gall to call the police and told them my father had stolen her gifts. In the end, she got herself a hefty fine for wasting police resources and a cease and desist order. Even that didn't stop her antics. Her antics only got worse up until the day she tried to take over my new house, and at that point I was forced to get an order of protection against her. I got it easily due to her record of constant harassments and entitlement. What would you do in this situation if you were OP? Crazy Lady. Crazy Lady claimed to be the former owner of my truck. Posted by Bungee Cord Throwaway. In 2020, I lost my home in a wildfire and was only left with whatever I could pack up in a Ford Focus during the evacuation. I was renting a basement apartment in a country house, and most of my stuff went up in flames. I realized that my car may get good gas mileage, but it's not going to hold a lot of stuff, or, well, tow anything. My landlord evacuated his family in a big GMC truck with a fifth-wheel trailer. He had everything he needed, from emergency food storage to backup vehicles. His wife drove another truck out fully loaded with the trailer full of their stuff. They had everything they needed to survive and more. That made me realize that I needed to be better prepared. I had to couch surf for a while, and I could never stay in one place for long because I was a guest and not a tenant. So I ended up living out of a tent in a field with several other people who'd also lost their homes to the fires. It was like a tent village set up by a local charity. The shelters were beyond full, and it's a warm climate, so tents were the next best way to go considering the situation at the time. I managed to get a used but decent sized tent and basically furnished it like a tiny apartment with a cot, small table, and some chairs. I even housed a poker night in it a few times. Though I tried to make sure I didn't leave anything worth stealing in it when I went to work. I was still going to work almost every day and even volunteering for extra shifts. I was saving money since I wasn't paying rent and was living the tent life. And I made up my mind to keep saving to one day buy a truck of my own. Because if this situation with the wildfires or some other disaster ever happened again, I need to be better prepared. Move on to just a few months ago. I put down over a year's worth of savings to buy a used Chevy Silverado 1500 with a canopy already on it. It's got a few dents and a big diagonal scratch across the hood, and the paint is a bit weather worn. But so what? It had a good bit less than 100,000 miles on it and a list of recent repairs that included a new radiator. I'd spent a year living as cheaply as possible to save as much as possible. I wanted a truck and a camp trailer in case the fires ever come back. Some people have tried to call me a hoarder for picking up stuff off the side of the road and then using it, but I don't keep all that stuff at my apartment. In fact, I keep almost minimal furniture. Some remark that my apartment looks like it was just moved into, as I still keep some of my stuff packed in boxes. I want to be able to pack and leave fast if I have to, especially since the world only seems to be getting worse right now. I bought the truck, an ironically silver Silverado. I bought it off a man who looked to be in his 50s that said he has a bad back and can't use it anymore. And he gave me a steal of a deal when I came to get it by dropping the price by $1,000 because he felt that I was clearly in love with it. And I am. I'm very happy with the truck. She drives like a dream. A big, heavy dream, but still a dream. And she was clearly underdriven by the previous owner, as it's still not at 100,000 miles. I still kept my old Ford Focus though, that way my fuel costs won't skyrocket. Now, let's go to what happened a few weeks after I bought the truck. I was out in the same general area that I bought the truck in to look at a used camp trailer that I was possibly interested in buying. But it ended up being in such bad shape that I turned it down because it was beyond my skills to repair. Before leaving the town, I stopped to eat at a local diner. Great burgers there, by the way. And as I was leaving after having dinner, I noticed a woman who looked to be somewhere in her 40s looking over my truck. I'm not going to use the term Karen to describe this person because I know two women named Karen and they are both fantastic people. So no Karen here, but she did sort of have that look that people associate with the stereotype. I asked the lady what she was doing poking around my truck, and she gave me a side glare while demanding to know where I got it. I said, well, I just bought it a few weeks prior. She rushed up to me and said, I didn't buy it, I stole it. I told her, no, I purchased it from the title owner, so that makes it mine. The lady then rifled through her purse to pull out a smartphone and scrolled through it. And then she showed a photo of a truck in it. I looked at the truck in the picture, and I'll be a monkey's uncle, it was the same truck. The license plate and scratch on the hood were clearly visible, and there was also a man in the photo. The same guy who sold me the truck. When I acknowledged this, the crazy lady started yelling, "See, see," and then demanded I return it to her. She held her hand out for the keys and kept saying to give it back. I told her that I bought the Silverado fair and square off the guy in the photo, and that it's my truck now. But she didn't let up. She went and sat on my bumper and called the police. She was heavily exaggerating while talking to the operator or the dispatcher or whatever they call the person on the line when you call 911. I'm not sure. She refused to get off of my truck, so I decided to just wait it out for the police to show up. When police got there, I stayed completely calm, but the crazy lady went off and started working up tears and saying that her truck went missing some time ago and she finally found it. And then she demanded that they arrest me for Grand Theft Auto and get her truck back. I just calmly unlocked the doors, got my insurance card, registration, and license to hand to one of the officers. I told them to just check my documents and they'd see that I am the legal owner. But the crazy lady did not stop. She tried to run to the door of the truck that I'd opened, but I'd relocked it before I shut it. And she tried repeatedly to pull on the handle while telling the police to just arrest me already. One of the officers calmed the lady down while the other ran my information. He came back after a few minutes and said that, well, everything checks out. The crazy lady looked like a British word that I like to use that I can think best described the moment. Gobsmacked. She said that it can't be and demanded the police check again. Then she pulled out her phone to show more pictures of the truck, and I pointed out that the man in one of the photos was the one who sold the truck to me, and I have no idea what relation the crazy lady is to him, but he's the only person I bought the truck from. The police asked her who it was, and she said it was her soon-to-be ex-husband. They were going through a divorce. I pointed out when I bought the truck, her husband's name was the only one on the title. The crazy lady yelled at me that he'd originally bought it for her, and it was missing one day after she came home. All I could do was shrug and say I didn't know that. But her husband was the legal owner before me, and I bought the truck from him. The police told her that I was correct, and it is legally my truck now. The lady went from crazy to just very sad as she cried that it was her truck and he sold it without her permission. I did feel sorry for the woman and said to the police that they may want to do a wellness check on her or something. They said that I was free to go and they would handle the situation from there. When I was getting ready to leave, the crazy lady yelled that she was going to follow me and find out where I live. But the two officers didn't let her do so. I left the parking lot and hightailed it on the highway to get out of there. I later contacted the guy who sold me the truck, and he admitted that the crazy lady is his soon-to-be ex-wife. She cheated on him for the second time, and it was the final nail in the coffin for their marriage. The truck was always in his name only, and that woman had signed a prenup when they married. So the divorce was not going in her favor. It's been months now, and that lady has not found me again. So I'm probably in the clear as long as I avoid the area that I bought the truck in. Though, for all I know, she's not even living there anymore since her husband divorced her. Karen says I should be lucky. What? Posted by Bobby Senpai. So it's a bit of a backstory. I have many years under my belt of building custom computers and have built a name for myself in my town as a guru. A friend started that name years ago. I've always been intimate, anything tech, and now I freelance AI, apps, security, and repairs, graphic design for games, programming games, web design and development, and my favorite is custom builds per user. I have a few questions I ask people that want a custom build from me, and I'll explain that later, as it helps me decide on the parts and the upgrades to the hardware down the line if so chosen to do so. So I work from home as I don't own a storefront, and I work solely alone. I also don't make as much as you'd expect from custom builds. Also, I'm pretty patient with people since I'm used to customer service and have taken care of my special needs brother and sister. So with that out of the way, here we go. I was at home working on a server for a local small mom and pop place when I received the call from Karen. I answered and she started off rather nice, but that was about to change. She said it was her son's 15th birthday and wanted to get him his dream game computer, and that I was highly recommended by her friend. Always a bit of a boost to hear people recommending me. That's when I started to ask my questions. I first asked about budget. She said $2,000. Second, I asked her if he planned to stream videos, make his own stream content, or make YouTube videos. Well, she didn't know. I told her, well, that's okay, but if he did, I'd need to know or we can plan for that. She said, let's plan for it. Third question was, what games did he like or what was he planning to play? she didn't know and why the heck I'm so interested in what her kid does. Well, I explained that games have different settings for graphic quality at different resolutions, and then I explained frame rates to her as well. She said just pick what I think would be best and not be picking in her son's life. I had to explain the questions are so that I can build him the best PC for his uses. She accepted this, and we went on. Third question was if there was Ethernet or will he be using Wi-Fi. She yelled over the phone, saying what, so I can hack her or something? Apparently, she thinks that knowing this allows me to hack her, and why would I? I had to explain again that this was so I could include a Wi-Fi card or a motherboard that has Wi-Fi capabilities, as some come out of the box ready for it. She was mumbling something but said fine, and if she gets hacked, I get sued. I told her that I don't hack people, I just need to know so I can spend more or less on parts. She then said, no more questions, just do it. I told her that I asked these questions to better provide the correct parts and PC services that I can, as this allows me to build to the user. She said, well, I think you have enough information now, just do it. I was thinking I literally don't have the information, as she didn't know. Maybe it was a surprise for her kid, I thought, and she didn't want to give it away. Now I think she just didn't know her kid. So I just took the most popular games and moderate graphics into account. I gave her the price, which was just over $1,900. Now, mind you, the price of GPUs or graphics processing units were coming down around this time, but they were still high. I always charge a $100 build fee, so her total was just over $1,900 with that fee. She then told me I tried to get every penny and Walmart has them cheaper at around $1,000. I explained to her, yes, but they are using older hardware and games are always advancing, that this allows him to play any modern title and future ones as well. She then asked if that was the monitor, keyboard, mouse, and desk with lights. If only she would have let me finish my questions before. I explained, no, this was just the computer, as she never stated she wanted all of that with the price. I tried to explain that my questioning is all about the build itself first, then the peripherals, but I never got to it as she exploded in a rage, telling me I was a scammer and how her son was going to build his own games and be more successful than me, and that I should be lucky to build a computer and do it for free since he will be famous one day. I stayed calm as normally, as I would have snapped at treatment like this and just hung up. But I have a soft spot for people who want to learn tech, and it was the kid's birthday. So I told her that there was no need for such words. Then she said, I'm telling everyone who you really are, Mr. Scammer, and hung up. The next day, I got a call from her husband. Oh boy, I thought that when he told me who he was. However, he was very nice. I went through my process again, and the computer was to be a surprise. I then asked if they wanted, I could build the PC with their son and teach him, or both, or all of them, how to do it. It's something that I do so they can upgrade or get a small head start on learning. He loved the idea. And the day came, and apparently I was an idol to the kid, as his youth pastor has a custom Marvel case that I built for his computer, which is who recommended me. The mom, though, was just silent and never said a word. Me, the kid, and his dad all had fun as I taught them, but the mom just didn't join. They even spent more at the husband's request, as he wanted his kid to have the best. He tried to pay me more, but I refused, as I don't charge more than $100 per build unless I'm driving further away for a build to be done in person. I did get a bad review on my store's Facebook, but no one paid attention. I guess a Karen is still a Karen. This is a ridiculous story of Karen trying to one-up OP and the HOA fining, and it's a crazy mess. You gotta hear it. It's called It Is Your Truck After All, posted by Deleted. The background. Automobile insurance adjusters navigate a valley filled with mendacity and misrepresentation. For every 10 people I spoke with, at least half either omitted something material, lied, or committed fraud. If mendacity actually smelled like death, then I was surrounded by an ever-present stench. This story of malicious compliance is one way to clear the air. Helpful points. The named insured on a policy is required to follow the insurance policy contract to obtain coverage, and usually the DMV will have the name of the lender on the title. A total loss vehicle is stored around 45 to 60 days before storage charges start. The story. Mr. Debtor had a very fancy, new to him, fix or repair daily truck. That truck had every conceivable option and was ultimately an overpowered vehicle for an inexperienced driver. Surprise! Mr. Debtor wrecked that POS, piece of excrement, within 3 months of purchasing it. If you're going to wreck it, then go all out. This vehicle had a completely smashed front end with all the airbags deployed, rollover damage to all panels, frame damages, broken glass, and of course, most of the engine compartment obliterated. In short, this car is called a total loss. The cost to repair the vehicle is more than 75% of its value and is not feasible to repair. Mr. Debtor's minor physical injuries were eclipsed by the mortal blow received by his pride. He let me know how I was directly responsible for his drunk driving crash, his injuries, and that I needed to go to heck and live there. This was the first call. Lovely. Fast forward, and I've given Mr. Debtor an offer to resolve his total loss. I checked the DMV. No lender is listed on the title. Total loss call goes like this. Hey, we're ready to settle this claim for you. Do you have the title? I say. Mr. Debtor replies, yes. Do you have the loan on the car? No, of course not. Insert long and misogynistic rant regarding his wealth, status, and superiority. Thank you for sharing. I can come to meet with you today, sign the title transfer, and give you the funds as you are listed as the owner. No, I have to get the title out of the safe deposit boxes at the bank. Over the next 60 days, Mr. Debtor hems and haws about this title for over 2 months. Every week I call him and I mail a letter regarding the need to sign and mitigate damages, like towing, storage, and so on. Which brings us to the phone call that let the fresh breeze in. The phone call that changes everything is at 10:30 a.m. on a Monday. Hi, I say, it's been a while and I'm still needing that title from you to settle your claim. You're harassing me. No, sir, I'm fulfilling my obligations to you as a customer. I need to get your title to pay your claim back. Listen here, you are on my schedule, not the other way around. You think you're, insert elevator music of curses, insults, and misogyny. Sir, I'm just trying to save you the hassle of dealing with the truck. Storage is starting soon. He interrupts. I'm going to call you when I'm good and ready. You'll get the title then. If you call me again, I'm filing a police report. It's your car. Deal with it. And the phone call ends. Mr. Debtor's given me a clear and unmistakable indicator that he is not cooperating and is in violation of his contractual responsibilities. I can't abandon salvage. I can, however, do this. 11 a.m. on a Monday. Hi, salvage vendor. You have Mr. Debtor's truck on the lot. He's not ready to resolve his claim. Can you tow it back to 123 Debtor Heck Lane? Yes, that's right. In his driveway, please. And with that, Mr. Debtor's wondrous wreck of a vehicle is towed to his property. At 1 p.m. on a Monday. What the heck, he says. The HOA called. You can't leave that in my driveway. I'll sue you. My neighbors are asking questions, blah, blah, blah. Hi, Mr. Debtor. I'm sorry for the confusion. You see, the truck is yours, after all. You're on the title and have refused to help me process this claim. As you requested, the vehicle will remain on your property until you're ready. My HOA is fining me. You must pick up the truck now. No, you still haven't provided the title. When you're ready, let me know. Is there anything else I can help you with? Slowly deflating, Mr. Debtor replies, You can't do this. Sir, the truck is yours. You've refused to complete the paperwork and I have no legal standing to store the vehicle indefinitely. Remember that valley of mendacity I mentioned? Brace yourself in 3, 2, 1. Mr. Debtor in a low growling noise. I'm broke, title pawn. I'm sorry? I don't have the title. It's at I'm broke, title pawn. I will not call him a liar. I will not call him a liar. I will not call him a liar. Oh, sorry that I misunderstood that you had the title. Can you give me their number? And with that, the dragon was slayed. So I called the subprime high-interest title pawn company. They were surprised to learn about the vehicle being wrecked, and the balance remaining, $3,200 and 13 months. Mr. Debtor thought we were going to hold his wreck for 13 months. He signed, and the lender was paid. Oh, the vehicle. I had signed the paperwork in hand and had the vehicle picked up on Tuesday morning. His round trip tow back to the salvage cost him an additional $150. Non-cooperation is expensive. This story takes place in an HOA, and it's called Ex-Friend Expected Free Rent, posted by Deleted. My lifelong friend wanted to live in my condo that I wasn't actively using because I had relocated to another city, apartment, before I was going to then rent out the condo. I told him that he could use it for a small amount of time until he found his own place, maybe even 6 months, just not for too long. I paid $280 a month in HOA dues. It had a pool, security, and so on. And property taxes ran me about $200 a month, plus the electric bill was then assessed by unit each month. I told him he could stay at the condo for $550 a month, just my cost to keep it going, and this was in Southern California. He agreed to pay, didn't seem to grumble or anything, and I honestly thought that I was doing something really nice for my longest time friend. An 820 square foot condo with a pool for $550 a month in California. You're just not going to find that. I wasn't making a dime off of him. I just didn't want to lose money and subsidize his lifestyle out of my pocket. Fast forward a few months. My other friends all inform me that he's been texting them about what a B I am that I dare charge him rent to stay there. How could a friend charge money for that? My friends didn't know what was the deal, so they asked me, and I told them that I'm not charging him any rent. I'm literally just asking that he pay the cost of the unit and nothing more. For reference, when he left eventually, I rented it for several years at $1,300 a month, so he was not even paying half of market rent. I owned the condo free and clear, so I had lower costs with no mortgage, thus allowing me to charge him less and break even. Finally, when we eventually went to move my stuff out of there, and yes, it was fully furnished too, with a nice TV, kitchen items, everything you could need. He had broken about a quarter of my dishes. He'd left a used rubber hanging on a trash can, and while my 105-pound girlfriend and I packed my stuff, he sat on the couch, not offering to help at all, even once in 3 days. He laughed about the rubber, and he took a giant dump in the bathroom and clogged the toilet, requiring a plumber to fix. And then, when we went to dinner, he forgot his wallet and never paid me back. He even woke us up early after we were up late packing by talking on the phone with online friends that he met on various chat forums. We didn't remain friends long after that, needless to say. I couldn't believe just how oblivious that is to just get such a good deal and then badmouth the person for doing you a favor and then trash their place. I spent a bunch more on housekeeping, and my real estate agent who was renting it out after he left said that the housekeeping service had never seen a place so filthy. We noticed that too. Besides the rubber, there was just dirt and filth everywhere. He wiped it out. Do you agree with this commenter? If that was my own brother, I'd have his butt on the street immediately after finding out that he was crap talking such a sweet deal. And OP drops this face palm right here. It kind of makes it funnier if I mention that he had inherited over $100,000 just a few years earlier, quit his job, blew through the money in 2.5 years completely, and then started trying to mooch wherever possible. I urged him to invest that money and continue working, but he didn't. Oh my gosh, this is crazy. What do you think? Lock up the vacation homes. You never said what, Lock, posted by Cynical Altruist. This was fun. A while back, my friend and I had a brief job working a managed vacation home place, basically renting really nice houses to people over the summer. Think $1,000 per day, and you have the basic units. At the end of the fall, the place hires a ton of people, students, to go around and winterize all the summer homes and prepare the year-round cabins for winter, like hauling wood, replacing storm windows, checking insulation, adding blankets, stuff like that. So my friend and I sign up. Pay is per day. It's pretty good for just a week of house maintenance. I don't know if it was technically legal since we never signed a contract, but I knew the people who ran the property, and they were down to earth. They were honest people that I could yell at if I didn't get paid. Now, also on this property are personal units. Basically, someone bought or leased the building, not really sure which, but the maintenance is still taken care of as if they were a rental. These units have special needs as it was put to us. Stuff like alarm systems, sheds, garages, registered gun and liquor cabinets, cameras, and, most importantly, door locks. That last one is the reason this post exists. So, towards my last day, my friend and I are tasked with opening one of these personal units, basically just making sure that it can be moved into. We check the water is on and running, that the pipes on the outside are off, and that everything is just right for the people who live there. We finish and prepare to lock up the building. There's the deadbolt keyed by the property and a padlock on each door, the front, back, and basement, and the shed and garage if there is one. When the family isn't there, a property padlock is put on, basically bought off the shelf and cataloged in the most beautiful and easy to use key cabinet that I've ever seen. Was later told that this prevented master key theft despite the hassle. When the family is arriving, they put on padlocks if they supply them, or they leave them off if they don't. Once the personal unit's occupied, all padlocks are removed for fire safety purposes unless put on by the homeowner. None of the other units we did had supplied their own padlocks. As far as I know, the service was only offered because someone had accidentally broken a deadbolt in the middle of the winter and wanted a second way to lock the door. They offered this as a solution, and everyone else was butthurt that someone else got this solution and they didn't, accidentally setting a precedent. Usually they can only accept combo locks and keyed locks, so the combos and the keys can be filed away for their use if necessary. But not this time. Nah, this time it was smart padlocks. These locks were biometric, and they had been sent with incredibly specific instructions. Incredibly specific instructions that were illegible since the ink had been ruined by the protective oils on the metal. So we called the family. A man answers. "It's a padlock. How frickin' stupid do you have to be to not know how to use a padlock?" "Okay then, bad time to call or just a jerk? You decide." The park manager says that once these locks are on, the staff can't take them off since they're not keyed for our fingerprints. "Well, I'd expect everything to be done by the time I get there. Isn't that what I pay you for?" Well then, definitely a Richard. Now, one of these things about these locks was that they were all fail secure, so if they lose battery, they are locked until they're powered. The batteries on these things hadn't been charged in a while. These locks were also not rated for outdoor use, and we were expecting thunderstorms that week. You can see where this is going. We didn't charge the locks. There's no cover over the front door, the basement door, garage, or shed, so that's where we put the ones that had the best battery life left. The rain would fix that. The others were pretty much about to die. And the next day, it rained super hard. From the park manager, I learned that the family had to wait an hour in their car before the manager arrived with bolt cutters. They were fuming at the amount of money they had just thrown out, and each lock was like $50, and the park manager cited his call in the damage, and insurance refused to cover, stating that the locks had never been intended to be used outside. After this, electronic locks of any kind were banned, and it gave the park manager a reason to remove the rule allowing tenants to request or put on padlocks. "Entitled woman tries to take my dog from me. Has no idea that I'm friendly with the local business owners." Posted by Man at Arms 1989. "I had someone once tried to take my blue heeler, Sophie, from me when I was out in town with her." Background. At the time of the story, I was 19 and my younger brother was 6. I'd take Sophie out with me and pick him up from school, and then we go to the restaurant next to where my father worked as a pharmacist. When my father was done at work, about an hour after we got there, we'd all carpool home together. The little brother would take his food to the little arcade machine that they had in the back and blow his allowance on it, and I'd go outside to eat with Sophie while reading on my tablet. It was a nice little mom-and-pop ice cream parlor and restaurant. It's been around since the early 1930s, and it's across the street from a rather well-known local tourist attraction. We knew the owners, and they liked her, often spoiling her with food that was either turned away or just stuff that they couldn't sell that day. The owner's wife would often spoil Sophie with free ice cream or a piece of saltwater taffy. The story. The little brother had had half a day on the day this had happened, so we'd gotten there right as the lunch crowd was leaving. I leashed Sophie to an outdoor table at the restaurant while my little brother and I went inside to order, as per our usual routine. The owners had no problem with it, as we were on good terms at the time, and well, we still are. Sophie wasn't aggressive, and I was on first-name basis with most of the staff, who adored her. Now, most of them were either still in high school or just graduated and picking up a first-time job. I go to place our order, including something for Sophie to eat, and halfway through our order, the server points behind me and says in a panicked voice, "Someone's trying to grab Sophie." I dropped what I was doing, turned around, and saw this heavy-set lady trying to corral Sophie around the table, with one hand on her leash and the other hand trying to grab her collar. I'd had people ask me if she was for sale before. She was and still is a very beautiful dog, even at 16 years old now. But nobody had tried to just take her before this. I rushed toward the door and threw it open so hard it nearly cracked the glass pane. Meanwhile, the cashier was calling the owner out of the back of the kitchen. After I got out the door, I demanded, "The heck are you messing with my dog for?" The lady responded with a sweet voice, "Well, I was just going to take her home." Like she wasn't just trying to steal someone's beloved pet. I lost my crap and I screamed at her, "You get your hands away from my dog or there's going to be police involved and it won't be for you." I was and still am a big guy. I'm 6 feet 1 inches and about 280 pounds. She jerked her hand away like she'd been stung, but decided to try and start ranting at me about how, "You obviously don't care for the poor thing if you're leaving it tied out here in the sun. You don't deserve this sweet little thing." The nerve of this lady. She'd been caught red-handed and she was still trying to get my dog. At this point, I'd had it. "Lady," I started in a low growl, trying and failing to keep calm. I've had anger management issues since I was small, so this wasn't easy. "She's in a shady area, and I set a bowl of water down for her, which she hasn't even touched yet. I'd been in the restaurant for about a minute before you decided to try and abduct her, and we eat outside of this establishment all the time." At this point, I was about ready to explode, but I kept as calm as I could as I grabbed Sophie's leash and unclipped it from the table. She immediately hid behind me, and I tried to back off, but this entitled lady wasn't done yet. "You don't deserve such a beautiful dog. I want her for my kids to play with," she demanded. At this, I sensed an opening to de-escalate the situation. "That's a terrible idea," I started, having an idea on how to get out of this situation. "This breed is notorious for being bad with kids." This is true with the breed, but not with Sophie. She's always loved kids, and she's mixed with Australian Shepherd, which are generally great with kids in my experience. But this lady didn't need to know that. "What are you talking about? She's been so friendly every time you're down here." This raised every alarm bell and red flag in my head at the same time. She'd been watching me and Sophie for at least a week or two to know how often I was down here and know our routine. She might have even planned this out in advance. This is a cattle dog. They're bred to work with half wild cattle and are known as healers for how they bite at the heels of people and animals. They're not like Lassie. I started ranting. And to be honest, I never knew if she understood that reference. "And it doesn't matter anyway. This is my dog and you're not getting her. Now leave us alone before the police get here. The staff have already called them." This was a bluff. I had no idea what the staff were doing. But it made her stop for a minute. And that was long enough for me to get back to the door and open it before asking the owner, who had come out of the back, "Hey owner," I'm not using his real name without permission, "mind if I wait in here with Sophie for a bit? Someone just tried to take her while she was out front." The owner took one look at me and at Sophie trying to hide from the lady and replied, "Head into the back. I'll let you know when it's safe." I took Sophie and headed back into the area next to the arcade machine where she cuddled up to my little brother, who she's always been attached to. Meanwhile, I heard the owner start telling the lady off. She even tried to claim I stole her dog. The conversation went like this. "He just took my dog." "Nice try, but he's a regular customer and he's had that dog for 2 years now. I've known her since she was a puppy." "I'm not leaving until I get that dog." The owner, in the most quiet, soft, and collected voice I'd ever heard him use. It honestly made him more intimidating. I'd never seen him get angry before, and it was terrifying. "No, you're leaving right now. We have you on camera trying to take his dog." "This isn't over. I want to speak with the owner." "Yes, it is. I'm the owner, and you're banned, both from my store," for some reason he never called it a restaurant, "and all other stores in town." "You can't do that. You have no authority." "Yes, I can. I'm the head of the local council, and I'm making sure they all see what you did. If you leave now, you should get away before his father gets here. I've already called him, and he's not a nice man when his family is threatened." This was a bluff. He never called my father, but I didn't learn that until years later. Dad was a true Papa Bear when it came to us kids, even threatening the local deputy once when he came into our house when he wasn't home. This was what finally broke her, but she wasn't going to leave before getting in one last blustering half-threat. "Fine, I'll leave, but this isn't the end of this," after which she stormed out. It turned out that was the end of it. The lady got kicked out of all the local owned stores and had to do all her shopping at a chain store in the next town. She later moved out of the area when people found out what type of person she was and stopped being nice to her. Nowadays, the ice cream shop has been sold to new owners. The old owners retired a few years later and are now living a comfortable life in the Washington Peninsula. I still talk with them online every now and then. I gave the wife my reading tablet so she could enjoy her books more often as a retirement present. My father's also retired and spends most of his time around town, hanging out and playing with his friends in a blues band. And my brother and I work at a local grocer. Sophie still likes kids and the sweet things in life, but we've had to cut back on how much she gets. She's getting old and having trouble getting around now. For all pet owners out there, I'll say this: get your animal licensed and chipped if possible. If you can't get them licensed, keep a photo and vet records of them for when you have to prove it's your animal. And never make my mistake and leave your pet unattended in a public place. Insane Karen neighbor story time. How would you handle her? I thought we were just being paranoid. Lesson learned, trust your gut by Wadia729. And there's an update with a conclusion. So my husband and I thought we were just overthinking the situation, but nope, we were right all along. We bought our first and current home just over 2 years ago. We were so excited to get into a house and we're really looking forward to getting out of apartment living. But it has turned out to be a complete disaster. It all started with the neighbors behind us. They were mowing 8 feet over the lot line, and they have a 120-pound Husky Lab German Shepherd mix who they let out with no fence, tether, or leash. After he charged at our 4-pound puppy, the wife had to wrestle the dog to the ground and the husband just went inside. We had a fence installed. Very long story short, the fence ticked them off beyond belief because children should be able to play wherever. Except never once did we see their kids out back. We thought the fence would be the end of it, but you know where this is going. Now, they ram our fence with their lawnmower whenever they can, and they throw trash over the fence into our property. We couldn't figure out where the hostility was coming from until I heard the wife talking to her mom or mother-in-law about us. They don't even have kids. They took that house from a family who deserves it. Just a note, our house is a 2-bedroom, 1.5 bath, and is just under 1,100 square feet. This is not a home built for kids, but it's just the right fit for us, our dog, and 2 cats. We thought this was just them and not the attitude of everyone around us. But then I started hearing whispers, upper Midwest whispering that you're absolutely supposed to hear from some neighborhood parents about the same thing. They don't have kids, they don't belong here. Again, this was like the same 3 sets of parents who all have kids the same age who play together. A few entitled parents who judge me for not being a mother is nothing new, and most parents don't give a crap if you tell them that you don't have or want kids, so whatever. This goes on for a while, and we just wrote it off as a few bad eggs. Then, a couple of weeks ago, my husband and I were snapping at each other while carrying in groceries from the car. As we're putting the groceries away and laughing, the cops show up at our door. Where we live, we have very strict domestic violence laws, so usually someone gets arrested if the cops get a domestic call. It was pretty obvious that no one was at risk of anything, and I go back inside. We immediately pull up the live feed from our Ring cam and catch the cops' conversation. Officer says, "Yeah, this was nothing. If my neighbors called the office every time my wife and I snapped at each other, they'd be over every day." Sergeant replies, "This was a huge waste of our time. I'm going to go over and I'll talk to the caller." We never should have been called. I'm so tired of coming into this neighborhood." We see the sergeant walk over across the street, and we couldn't hear what he said, but it was pretty obvious he was less than happy with the neighbors who called. The husband started shouting, "We have kids, they shouldn't have to listen to this." And the sergeant said something that shut him up and wrote a ticket, which turned out to be a ticket for a false report. We were very upset about the cops being called to our home. We knew how close we came to one of us getting arrested over nothing. We talked to our next door neighbor, who we love and who is getting their house ready to sell. She said, "Yeah, I wasn't going to say anything because my ex-husband and I had issues with this same group for years, and we didn't want to get involved. But there is a group of parents who talk about you guys all the time, and they're working together to get you to leave. They think that you shouldn't be living in this neighborhood since you don't have kids. We had issues with them because my ex-husband is black, and the neighbors didn't want black kids running around the neighborhood. The cops used to be called all the time when our kids were playing outside, so the cops know about the parents on this street. Now they write tickets every time that they're called to the neighborhood, and it turns out to be nothing." We couldn't believe it. Confirmation that there really is a mommy mafia conspiracy that's out to get us, and they're super racist to boot. Later that day, we were on our way back to our house from a dog walk and saw the guy who called the cops on us talking to our next door neighbor, and she was flipping her crap on him. "I've told you over and over not to call the cops about every little thing. I have black kids who have black friends, and the last thing I need is a dead kid because of you. You can take your BLM sign and shove it up your butt. You called over nothing. My kids could have been hurt." We don't know what to do at this point. We're surrounded by really mean racist parents who, apparently, are going to constantly call the cops on us until they run us out. We just had an incident this morning. We caught the neighbors behind us letting their huge dog into our fenced-in yard to poop. Full-on trespassing, opened our gate and everything. My husband went out there and got upset with them, and all they did was go inside without their dog. They just left him in our yard. My husband came inside, called animal control, and forwarded the ring footage of them opening the gate to the same sergeant who came by our house on the domestic call. When the cops and the animal control showed up, the wife came out back to try and sneak the dog back into the house and was caught by one of the cops in our yard. We don't know what happened after that, but hopefully we'll get an update soon. Here's the update a few months later. So the next door neighbors who we got along really well with moved out, which made us very sad. By the time they were gone for good, they had ran out of craps and told every one of our neighbors exactly what they thought of them. It was hilarious, but laughing audibly every time we heard them call someone a racist didn't earn us any points with the cabal of butthole parents, so we're still putting up with some crap. The neighbors behind us, who ran our fence and opened our gate to let their dog crap in our yard and then get caught by the cops, they have gone largely quiet. There was a ticket for trespassing and animal control threatened to remove their dog, so they've been avoiding us. They still ram our fence with their lawnmower and stomp all over our plants, but we got some revenge. My husband was working from home and the internet went out. He went to go check the router and noticed a technician from our ISP working on the box that sits on the easement between us and the butthole neighbors behind us. Husband went out and asked what's up. The tech said that our neighbor's internet went out and they just needed to replace a part quick. No biggie, right? Husband's ears perk up and he asked the tech what part was being replaced. The tech showed him and he said he wasn't sure how it could happen. Husband said, "Hey, could that have been caused by someone repeatedly ramming the box with the lawnmower?" The tech says, "Yeah, definitely." Husband says, "Out of curiosity, when did neighbor Butt call you to tell you his internet was out?" "Well, about 10 this morning." The husband proceeds to go grab his tablet and pulls up our ring footage from about 9:30 that morning, where neighbor Butthole clearly rams not only our fence, but also slams into the electrical boxes very hard, multiple times with his lawnmower. Tech asks husband to forward him the video, and husband does and goes inside. He tells me while I'm at work to pull up the live stream of our ring, and there's the tech standing next to the electrical box, showing Butthole neighbor the damage along with the footage the husband provided. Butthole neighbor says, "Well, I'm not paying for this." The tech says normal aging wear and tear is one thing, but this is property damage. Here's a bill for $1,200, and if you don't pay it, your internet will be canceled and it can go to collections. Gosh, it was funny. Didn't help our relationship with these people, but whatever. We got new next-door neighbors recently, and they seem nice, but they are still learning how suburban America works. They are an Eastern European family with a dark history. Slobodan tried to off Grandma and Grandpa back in the 90s. They were refugees in Europe for a long time before they were able to come here to America, and this is their very first house since losing theirs during the genocide. The family is Grandma, Grandpa, Mom, Dad, and 2 young kids. Any complaints that we have about them are minor, and they're getting the hang of it. They are super proud of finally having a home of their own. But I guess the biggest development is that we've decided to leave. We had a meeting with our realtor on Wednesday, and we're going to settle on a timeline as soon as he gets back to us. We bought our house less than 3 years ago, but housing prices jumped up so much that in that time we're going to walk away with over $100,000 when everything is said and done. It does feel like that we're letting the buttholes win, but we came to realize that we're not happy in suburbia and it's not worth it to stay just so we don't let butts win. We're planning on downsizing, going full millennial tiny home, and buying a liveaboard boat. Between COVID and our terrible experience in this neighborhood, husband and I are very tired of humanity and need a break. Luckily, the sale of our house will net us enough to cover all of our debt and most of the cost of the kinds of boats that we're looking at. So we'll be cutting our cost of living by at least 60% and starting off on an amazing new adventure. We can't wait to get the heck out of this nightmare of a neighborhood. We've also come to realize our part in this. The fact that we didn't really think about where our house was and focused only on the house itself when we bought it. It occurred to us recently that being child-free in a high-demand suburb with the best schools in the state didn't make much sense. That, and we all got new tax assessments, and ours jumped up by a staggering $58,000. So, screw paying those property taxes. Karen yells at the security guard for doing her job, posted by Daddy Dorian Art. My mother is well known to be a Karen, even joking about it herself sometimes. She's usually really sweet, but when it comes to staff or workers, her Karen side comes out full force. I have many stories about her antics, so she is labeled here as a Karen, since she wears the name proudly. Me and my partner are moving out of our house to a new town, so last week I moved back home with my parents for a few days to clean out my old storage room while my partner went down to the new town for his first day of school. My dad had a seizure the first day that I moved home, so my mom, Karen, asked me to help her with some general shopping while my grandmother watched my 4 siblings and took care of my dad. I drove us around town and to a few stores, eventually ending up at a Kmart. Think Walmart for us Kiwis, but no food, only general items. She wanted to get some workout gear, so we go in, we do our shopping, and we head to the checkouts. Here's where things get going. She grabbed the receipt and I grabbed the items, getting ready to walk out of the store. There had been lots of thefts recently due to the economic climate of my country at the moment. So, security will quickly glance at your receipt, see the number of items that you have, and let you out. Usually, they don't do this to everyone, just shady people, which has gotten the company in hot water because of racism and discrimination. So, the company now makes it an effort to check all receipts, which I'm fine with. As we walk out, my mother makes it past the security scanners before the young lady working as a security guard asks to see the receipt. Big mistake. My mother immediately screws her face up and makes more than a few scoffing sounds before exclaiming loudly, "Excuse me? Do I look like someone who would shoplift?" At this point, everyone at the tills is looking over, and I feel like melting into a puddle to get away as I have social anxiety. The poor lady puts her hands up in an "oh no, Karen on the loose" gesture and politely explains that we need to check everyone's receipts so we aren't discriminating. Mother Karen puffs up and screws her face up more. But do I look like a shoplifter? All my clothes are labeled, all expensive brands. She then scoffs again, winding up for a whole tirade, waving the little paper that would save me from embarrassment all around, all while flapping her lips like a shocked fish. She is slowly turning into a lovely shade of tomato red and looks like she's going to burst. Realizing things are going to get much worse, I finally pick myself up out of my mental puddle, grab the receipt from her claws, and show the security guard who's still attempting to placate the raging she-beast. I hand it over politely saying, "Here, have a look, is this okay?" while gazing longingly at those sliding doors, as I know salvation from the dirty looks hitting the back of my head is only a few steps away. The poor security guard waves me through, and I grab my mother beast's shoulder to push her out. She relents, moving through and muttering about rights and managers and not doing her job, stamping her feet like a toddler. I look over my shoulder as we walk out and give the security lady, who looked like she had just been slapped, a little smile and mouthed apology. The last words I hear before the doors to salvation slid shut was the security guard commenting in a small voice, "I only needed to see the receipt. It's my job." I felt horrified. Relief flooded me as I realized that it was over. Embarrassment burning at my cheeks as I shepherded the Karen to the car, all while she's still going on about how outrageous this was and how she feels disgusting and like a vagrant, all because she was asked to show her receipt. Thinking this was over, I hopped in the front seat, hands shaking and eyes tearing up. But no, the Karen turns to me, scrunched up her face, and made one more remark. "This only happened because you look homeless. Wear a dress next time." Oh, thanks, Mom. Thanks. I get injured on a delivery and Karen berates me because the delivery is taking longer than usual, posted by Nomadicus Rex. I don't even know how this is going to go, but we gotta dive in. It's gonna be crazy. Here we go. So, last night was fun. I am disabled due to a hit-and-run driver. I don't get disability, so on my good days, when my back isn't hurting too much, I do delivery for a popular online retailer that also owns a chain of grocery stores. Last night, I start my delivery shift. Of course, Karen's being Karen's, the first order, which is upstairs, also includes cases of water and gallons of water, because of course it does. Since this apartment complex decides that 24-point type is an appropriate script to write their unit numbers on instead of anything that, say, a paramedic or a delivery person could see from any distance, I'm out of my car, on foot, looking for the apartment, since Karen did not answer either my text message or phone calls asking for help locating her delivery location. While I am on foot, heading back to my car because I think I've spotted the correct building number, a large and aggressive dog comes at me. I run and get in my car, but not without falling, twisting my ankle, and biting down so hard that I chipped a tooth, which sucks. I get in the car, and the dog is now gone. I don't know where he went. Did the owner of the dog catch it? I don't know. I was in the car in pain, catching my breath. So, I call our on-the-road support folks, who generally are pretty helpful, and get permission to return this delivery to the store. And then Karen calls me back. I don't know why I answered. My can-do customer service instincts. But I told support, hold on, it looks like the customer is actually calling me back. Let me see if I can get this order delivered. Oh man. So, I answer. Karen starts demanding why I haven't delivered the order yet, and I told her, "Hey, I just got injured by one of your neighbor's dogs. My ankle is hurt. Can you please just give me a little help here finding your place? I just want to get your groceries." And Karen goes on a rant about how the groceries aren't for her, they are for her daughter, who is a nursing student with a large protective dog. And her daughter normally uses a folding wagon for groceries, and maybe she'll come down and help me grab those groceries. Nope, Karen's daughter does not want to do that, but she'll make sure to keep her large protective dog inside. I'm left wondering if this is the same dog that tried to eat my liver. I told Karen, that's okay. While I am expected to deliver the groceries to the door, dispatch has given me permission to return the order to the store. I can complete the order, the pain in my ankle hasn't set in that much, adrenaline and all, and Karen insists on me staying the whole time on the phone with her. And the whole time she's going on and on about how she wanted the delivery completed by a certain time, and now it's not going to be delivered on time. I told her, hey, I understand that. I didn't expect to have a dog come after me either, nor get hurt, but I'm completing the delivery in spite of being injured. Why was I so stupid? I couldn't put much weight on my ankle, so I couldn't carry as much as usual, and it took me a long time. So it took me about 4 to 5 trips to get this lady's stuff all in front of her daughter's door. The nursing student daughter who never so much as poked her head out to see if I was okay. Karen was angry at me the whole time, talking about how I raised her blood pressure so much that her chest was hurting. What? Huh? How's that? By delivering her grocery order and taking longer than usual to do so? I don't know yet if she called the company to complain, but it was the next to worst delivery I've ever been on. The worst being in 2018, where some yahoo out in the middle of nowhere decided to shoot at me for bringing them something that they ordered. Thankfully, the guy was a bad shot, and no, they did not get their delivery and were banned forever, but the police did nothing to the dude. So, it's the next day. I slept for like 10 or 11 hours, and I'm posting this. My ankle seems to have a mild sprain, my other foot hurts, and my tooth, it's still chipped. I'm waiting back to see if I'll get paid for the amount of time I had to work over thanks to this nonsense. Independent contractor work, yay. Fun times. An update. P.S. I don't know about most of y'all, but if someone was injured bringing me food, I would want to see that they were all right. I most certainly would be kind and sympathetic if it took a few extra minutes for them to bring me the food. I could have just not answered Karen's call, taken the groceries back to the store when I was done with my other deliveries, and still would have been paid. At worst, I would have missed out on a tip, if Karen actually tipped at all, but I also would have been paid for the extra time it took me to take those groceries back to the store. So, completing that order most definitely went against my best interest, and I'm left wondering if the dog that came after me was Karen's daughter's dog. People in this area can be so irresponsible about dogs, and look, I love doggos, they're my favorite critters. Karen demands a copy of Super Mario Bros. And accuses my entire department of theft, posted by Gold and Silver 61. Oh, this one's going to be rough, I can already tell. Here we go. With the new Super Mario Bros. Movie opening in theaters soon, I thought I would share this story from when I worked at good old Wally World back around the mid-2000s. I was filling in at the electronics department, and it was a slow day. I was standing in the middle of the department waiting for a customer to assist. Finally, a middle-aged woman, the Karen of the story, walks in. I approached her and asked her, "Hi, how can I help you?" She replied, "I want to purchase the newest Super Mario Bros. Game." I said, "Hey, not a problem." I led her to the Nintendo cabinet, opened it, and pulled out a copy of the game. But Karen said, No, not that one." I responded, "Ma'am, this is the newest copy of Super Mario Bros." No, I want Super Mario for the PlayStation." I informed her that Mario is a Nintendo licensed property and that it is not sold on PlayStation. She responded, "Yes it is, I saw a commercial advertising it for the PlayStation, and that's what I want to buy." I tried my best to tell her that she did not see a commercial advertising Mario for the PlayStation. Of course, this went as well as you expected. She shouted, "Don't tell me what I did or didn't see. I know I saw a commercial advertising Mario for the PlayStation, and that's what I want." I showed her the copyright logo on the game case, stating that Mario was a Nintendo licensed game, but she still refused to believe me. So I led her to our PlayStation display case and said, "Ma'am, this is our current selection of PlayStation games for sale. As you can see, there are no copies of Super Mario Bros. So even if you are right, we just don't carry copies of the game here." With this, I had just hoped that she would just accept that we didn't sell copies of the game for the PlayStation and just walk away. but if she did, I wouldn't be posting here. Instead, she started accusing me of stealing all the copies of Mario Brothers for the PlayStation to sell online at double the cost so I can make a profit. Dumbfounded, I asked what the heck she was basing this off of. Realizing I wasn't going to get through to her, I called over a coworker for assistance. I turned to the coworker and said, "You don't know the conversation I've had with this lady." He nods yes. I turned to Karen and said, "There is no way I could have prompted him on what you wanted coming into this department. So, with that in mind, please ask my coworker what you want." Karen turns to my coworker and tells him that she wanted the newest Super Mario Brothers on the PlayStation. He tells her the same thing that I did, that Mario isn't sold on PlayStation consoles. Of course, she lumps my coworker into the conspiracy that the two of us must be stealing all the copies of the game for PlayStation and selling them online at double the cost. The department manager finally sees the scene that Karen was making. He rushes over, tries to calm her down and tell her that Super Mario Brothers isn't sold on the PlayStation, but she lumps him in on it and, as the department manager, accused him of being the ringleader of the operation. Cue the crocodile tears as she says, "All I wanted to do was to buy a copy of Super Mario for the PlayStation for my son's birthday, but you monsters have ruined his and countless other children's birthdays by stealing the game from the store so you can sell them online at double the cost. Well, Walmart has lost a valued customer this day. I'm going to go to another store, find a copy of Super Mario Brothers for the PlayStation, bring it back here, and expose you all." Karen began to storm off, but I couldn't let her get the last word in. I yelled back, "Ma'am, go ahead and try to find a copy of Super Mario Brothers for the PlayStation at a different store. If you can, bring it back here and I will give you my next paycheck." Needless to say, we never saw or heard from her again. I guess she wasn't able to find Super Mario Brothers for the PlayStation after all. That time, the company lawyers told me to contact law enforcement, posted my moral logjam. This took place years ago, but it still makes me laugh at the sheer stupidity of it all. It starts as all truly great sagas published on the internet begin, when I met a random guy through a friend at a bar in the city. Let's call the guy I met Mark for the purpose of this post. My friend had introduced me to Mark because for a few years leading up to that introduction, I shared an idea that I had for a business with anyone who would listen. I was told that Mark wanted to start his own business, had worked in the industry, knew a lot about the subject matter required, and thought that my idea was good. Mark and I met up for a lunch. We hit it off, and he said that he'd start the business as the CEO and agreed to me taking a part-time operational role. I agreed to help solely in a part-time operational role because I couldn't afford to quit my day job. I put in 15% of the cash for 5% ownership since Mark was going to put in founder hours, which is 80 plus hours a week, and agreed to put up 85% of the cash, which was more money than I could afford to risk on a new venture. So I worked part-time. I did what I said I would do, and I even tried to be of assistance on things that I had no experience with. I connected Mark with a fella that I'd done business with before, and we'll call him Paul. Paul and I got into a dispute ourselves. More on this later. Anyway, let's fast forward a few months, and I got into a dispute with Mark over stationery. Yes, stationery not being to his liking caused him to flip out. This was despite him picking the stationery out. Next up, the contract I got from Mark was not what we agreed. The legal work required a few months to get done, and I had expected delays, but when I finally got it, the paperwork didn't represent what I had agreed to own. Not only that, but my investment wasn't being acknowledged under the terms that we had committed to when I put the money in. Now, as I said, I wasn't able to risk much, and I only invested what I could afford to lose, so this wasn't a huge sum of money. I didn't want to make a big deal about it since the amount was small, and he began promising a new contract when the business could pay for the lawyers to make changes. I signed nothing. Then it worsened. Mark and I start to fight anytime we're in a room together. As I think back, it's almost comical how angry he would get in my presence. I have other things to do with my time than squabble over stuff like stationery, so I worked on my areas of the business and I hoped that things would grow. I stopped in whenever I could and would help out regularly as needed with as little Mark interaction as possible. Paul would intervene sometimes when Mark would get particularly difficult to be around. Anyway, fast forward about 2 years, and Mark can't help but tell everyone who will listen that the business is going well. I have no idea how well things are going because Mark isn't giving me any updates. So I get a call around Christmas from Mark, and he wishes me a happy holiday and then drops the bomb on me that he wants to terminate my involvement and refund my investment. I decline the investment refund and say that I'm happy to no longer work with him. In my head, I think it's kind of hilarious that he thinks that this will just end that easily, but I say nothing to that accord to him. Mark and I hang up with him aggravated about my refusal to take the refund on my investment. Mark then sends me an email that I had resigned. This had no basis in fact, but certainly was creative about what we had just discussed. I correct him immediately in a reply, stating that he wanted to no longer work together, and that I can see that being the case, but want to discuss my investment. A few days later, Mark demands that I come and pick up a check for a reimbursement of my investment. I do not come and get it. Next thing you know, the company attorney huffs and puffs and tries to scare me with some strongly worded letter. This is the same idiot attorney who screwed up my contract to work on the business and my investment agreement. Let's call this attorney Mr. Cohn for the sake of the story. I send an email response to Mr. Cohn that he screwed up and the company seems to be doing well, that I hear rumors about how well, that I want to be on this for the foreseeable future, and I will not take a one-to-one cash out for what I put in. The attorney then emails me back, stating in writing that Mark never accepted my electronic transfer into the company account. Instead, Mark has another company he accepted the money into, a company I've never heard of, a company that is different than the name of the recipient on my electronic transfer, a company that will be committing wire fraud to accept the money that I sent. On that note, I did some sleuthing online. I found out that Mark had been forming one company every month or two. Then there were media reports and documents that he let slip in shared drives that he forgot that I had access to from when we agreed to work together. Mark was too cheap and stupid to pay for tech help, so he was using my shared folders that I'd created, and I certainly wasn't obligated to turn off the shares if he wanted to work out of them. Those documents showed me Mark had recently raised money in the company that I sent the payment to at 200 times the valuation that I had bought into it at, and Mark didn't disclose my investment to the new investors. Mark had, however, put me on documents showing my ownership to the previous investors. Not on documents I had ever seen before, but documents that he'd been sending around. When I share my suspicions that Mark is committing wire fraud with Mr. Cohn, I am told that I am the one breaking the law by knowing anything about the investment documents the company had used. Mr. Cohn tells me that by not picking up my check, I will not be entitled to any money and to contact law enforcement if I think something illegal has happened. He cautions, though, that I'll be the one in trouble. Cue the malicious compliance. I let the different respective members of the Securities and Exchange Commission, along with law enforcement, know what had happened to me. I provided them with all of the documents that I had from the matter. It took about 5 years for the investigation to conclude, for charges to be brought, for a trial to conclude, and for Mark to go to jail. They say government is slow, but they aren't kidding with just how slow. Maybe it was slow because Mark was running a large, tens of millions of dollars large fraud. Anyway, Mark will be serving time for about 30 felony charges they found uncovering the details of his Ponzi scheme. He will be away for a long time. I never did anything wrong. With the information that I was able to provide, Mr. Cohn ended up getting disbarred. There were other things Mr. Cohn did outside of what is shared in this post that I cannot share, or it could help to identify me to the folks involved. The investigators credited me with bringing the fraud to their attention. I lost my money in this ordeal, but gained an education, and I got to help bring down a crook. The sheer stupidity of Mark is that he didn't even follow the business plan that I had. He just used it as a story to convince investors to give him money. It is a business model that works very, very well. It took a few more years, but I'm now in a position to be pursuing this business full time, with people of high integrity who all work together to ensure each other's success. We expect to have an extremely profitable year in 2023 after proving the business model worked in 2022. This comment just takes the cake here. Why don't you call law enforcement and see what happens? You don't say that when you're so full of crap. Lawyer makes post-car accident worse for his client. Posted by Desert Dweller. I used to work in the claims department for one of the top auto insurance companies in America. I get a phone call from a lawyer looking to file a new accident claim for his client. His client is also my customer. I explained that I can take the initial report from the lawyer, but will be contacting the client to get his side of the story. The lawyer immediately tells me that I am not to contact the client because he is being represented by a lawyer. I explain that until I have an official letter of representation on file, I have every right to contact the client. So anyway, I proceed to gather all the details from the lawyer. Once I finish filing the claim, I generate a claim number and give it to the lawyer. The lawyer was stalling me a little bit, and I soon realized why. He was using the time to get an official letter of representation on file so I couldn't contact his client, also my customer, which he did, and now I'm not able to speak with the client unless given permission by the lawyer. The lawyer was a total pompous butt and was definitely trying to throw his weight around just to show that he was important. He definitely thought that he was putting me in my place. He proceeds to tell me that the client has minor injuries such as back and neck pain and is going to see a doctor. I explain that the client may see whatever doctor he wishes, but that it's best to have us get in contact with his doctor of choice as soon as possible so we can start using the coverage to pay for any medical bills. The lawyer gets all huffy-puffy with me and tells me that the client will go see a doctor and get all the medical help that he needs, and once it's all done and over with, he will send us a bill that we will be required to pay in full. I explain that it doesn't work that way. Some doctors require certain payments from insurance companies up front, or at least be in contact with the insurance company to confirm that certain payments will be paid. I also explained that the client only had a certain amount of coverage that he pays for. We are not required as an insurance company to pay more than what the client has on his policy. So, for example, if the client has $10,000 in coverage, we would only pay half of a $20,000 medical bill. I also explained that if the doctor hasn't been in contact with an insurance company, they may charge the client and the client will have to go through a different, longer process for us to reimburse him than if we just paid the doctor up front. Now, I know that all this sounds like a bunch of corporate BS, and it is, but I don't make the rules. I'm really trying my hardest to make this as easy as possible for the client, but the lawyer just isn't having it at all. The lawyer demands that the client will go to whatever doctor he wants and will receive whatever treatment he wants, and that we will pay for it in full, and the client will pay nothing out of pocket regardless of the cost of treatment. I went back and forth with the lawyer, but eventually you gotta understand that you're just going in circles and it's time to just take the loss. So I do, and we move on to the vehicle. Lawyer says it's damaged, but the client drove the car from the accident scene straight to the lawyer's office. The windshield was damaged and there were fluids leaking from the car. I recommended that we tow the vehicle to a repair shop, and I explained the customer had towing coverage and we can get a tow truck free of charge. The lawyer refuses and says the client can drive the car. The lawyer also demands that the client uses a repair shop of his choice. I explained to the lawyer that the client is absolutely allowed to use a shop of his choice, but that we have to send an adjuster out to the car to inspect the damage and give a quote to the repair shop. The reason we did this is a lot of times body shops will take advantage of insurance companies because they know we will pay and the shops fix things that don't need to be fixed and purposely buy more expensive parts to hike up the price. It's pretty much insurance fraud. So we usually send an expert of our own out to assess the damage and write up a fair and legit repair estimate. The lawyer refuses and says that he isn't telling us the shop that the car is going to, and once again, we will get a bill once all the work is done, and we will be required to pay the full bill regardless of the price. I explained that we do not cover the cost of aftermarket parts, only factory parts. It's listed in our contract. The customer agreed to this when he signed up, and once again, corporate BS, I know, but I don't make the rules, and I'm really trying to help the customer out here so he doesn't have a bunch of unnecessary crap to deal with. I argued with this lawyer for a long time about how things work and why the way that he was trying to handle this was going to end up costing the client money. The lawyer was on a path of destruction and was making every possible scenario worse for the client. The lawyer wasn't having any of it, and of course threatened to sue and all that crap. I finally gave in and let the lawyer do whatever he wanted. I knew the worst case scenario would come of this, and I figured I'd let the lawyer and the client feel the consequences of their stupid decisions and the lawyer trying to assert his dominance. I let him and his client do what they thought was best. I mean, why listen to the professional, right? What ends up happening is the customer takes the car to some sketchy shop. They do exactly what we feared and jack the price way up. They put expensive aftermarket replacement parts on the car, which we don't cover. The customer had to pay out of pocket for a bunch of stuff to the repair shop, and the repair shop took longer than the 30 days to repair his car, because the longer they have the car, the more they can charge. We only cover 30 days for a rental car, so the client ends up paying out of pocket for a rental car too. Also, the client had to pay some out-of-pocket expenses to his doctor. We ended up reimbursing him for the doctor bills, but it was a long, drawn-out process, and very frustrating. We did not refund him for some of the expenses at the body shop, which amount to more than $1,000. In the end, the customer had a ton more out-of-pocket expenses and headaches because of his butthole lawyer. I'd be pressing this issue finding out what happened, because you just don't let a lawyer take advantage of you like that. That's messed up, man. He's supposed to be in your corner, not his, trying to make himself look great. And in the end, it backfired on him. Click my next crazy HOA Karen compilation on your screen to continue your listening session. Thanks for checking this one out, and see you in the next one.